delay, everyone. We were undergoing technical difficulties on my end for the most part. Not as bad as the one time that happened where the whole computer shut down seconds before the stream started, but again, my goodness. So, welcome to this very impromptu, very casual stream. We have a guest here today who you may or may not know. Why don't you introducing yourself there?
Hi, I'm Crimson Emder, otherwise known as Crim. I run a YouTube channel. It's just a little small baby channel right now, but I talk a lot about media analysis and critical thinking, and my pronouns are he, him.
And for those of you who are not aware, this is Crim's channel. I put it on screen just now.
It's me.
Subscribe. It is a good channel. There's a lot of good stuff, especially if you want to talk about some real messy media criticism. Um,
I promise I'm not obsessed with a certain person. I
no, not at
promise.
all. In fact, though
I'm
we are going to be talking about them
normal.
later this week on Friday, for
Yeah.
that matter. So that'd be
I do
fun.
have a bee in my bonnet. I get bees in my bonnets about certain things, and like it just so happens that this was the bee in my bonnet that blew up on YouTube. So
So that's where we go. But no, so I'll be joining Crim on Friday as well to discuss good old Lily Orchard. But for right now, we're going to be talking about a very different set of characters, specifically Shinji and Kaworu from Evangelion. This is not exactly a very complicated stream. We're not going to be like really reacting to all that much. We're just going to be gushing about one of the best anime to ever exist. And we've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and this is a good excuse just to chat about it. So, if you're looking for something really intense, this is probably not going to be the chat. But if you're looking for something casual and fun, this will, it's not a bad way to spend a couple of hours. Anyway, so, Quinn, what's your experience with Evangelion? How did you get into this show?
I got into it as oh man, how personal can I get here? I got into Evangelion while I was deconstructing from my religion. So yeah, it
Mm.
was came about at a really good time for me. It gave me a lot to think about. And I just like big robots, so it feels like it was made for me in a lab. I rewatch it um, like once every year or two. The last time I rewatched it was a few months ago. But yeah, I've been a fan for about, God, how old am I now? I've been a fan for about 10 years or so.
Mm. Yeah, for me, so it's wild. For me, when I was younger, we had this one library in town, right? And
Okay.
our library had a limited amount of anime available. We had like Chobits, Fruits
Hmm.
Basket, Fushigi Yugi was another one, um, Excel Saga, strangely enough.
Yeah.
And one of the box sets there was Evangelion. I knew about it vaguely because of like anime magazines back when those were a thing. And
Yep.
it was just wild to me thinking about how old we are, that anime magazines is a point of
Yeah.
reference for historical
Bro,
context.
I used to be subscribed to Shonen Jump, so
Oh, same. I have like a whole bunch of them behind me in on the
yeah.
shelf. It's like a
I
whole bunch of those old volumes.
yeah.
But
Anyway.
what happened was, so I know about Evangelion and all that, and I saw the box set once in the library, took it out, and then just became obsessed with it. It was fantastic. For me personally, though, of course, as a kid, I related obviously to the best character in the show. Obviously the greatest character in all of Evangelion. And I'm just going to bring up the photo right here. It's just a fantastic character.
Oh, I know what this is.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to agree with you.
yeah. The best character is Asuka, closely
I
followed
mean,
by
I
Misato.
thought I thought you were going to bring up Pen Pen, but
Oh well, Pen Pen also, but that's like an actual answer. Like Pen Pen's the easy answer though.
yeah, it's true. I mean, like
You
I'll
gotta
be
give the
real.
other
I
ones a
know that
chance.
I will say that I do love Asuka. I think she gets a little too much hate from the fandom.
Oh yeah,
I do not like the rebuild version. But
yeah.
I feel like the I didn't like her when I was younger, I will say. But as I got older, the more I appreciated her, and I really started appreciating her when I started working with kids a few years ago,
Hmm.
because she's such a little brat, but like I've like just like the way that she shows off, and she's like, like I'm just gonna show Shinji how good I am at this whole Eva thing, and it's like it's very cute in an innocent way, and like she's it's such a painful character arc, but
Oh yeah.
I do love Asuka. Like for me that is not a that's not a controversial
Mm.
statement.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's the thing too. I feel a lot of people don't like get about the character. Not they don't get about the character. You don't understand the character, man. No. I mean, like more. This chat deserves ambient background music. Let me put on some like royalty free music as we're doing this, so we can like,
perfect.
nice royalty free that I use for my videos all the time. Let me get something going here.
While you're doing that, so that one thing I also want to say is that like Asuka and Shinji are very similar. And like I think if you look on the outside, you might not see it, but they're dealing with the same sort of trauma, the same sort of expectations. They're having the same feelings, they're just expressing them in very different ways until the end where it kind of flips and Shinji starts getting angry and Asuka starts sort of like curling in on herself and getting very self-destructive. So that's something I always thought was interesting.
Exactly, and I agree with that entirely. And I think also, I brought when watching shows, I feel like, and this is kind of impossible not to do with this discussion, especially given our personal experiences in life. You kind of bring yourself into the story a little bit, like when you watch a character who's really interesting and different from the norm, you kind of start to connect to them in some ways. Especially characters like Evangelion, we feel the characters have so many issues and have so many personal demons and conflicts, where you get to see kind of yourself in the character, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think with Asuka especially, like growing up, I was very much into academics, into sports. Well, let me rephrase that. In the track and field specifically.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, that was like I defined myself based on my successes on that. This music's a little too loud. Let me lower the music slightly. There we go. Lowering it a little bit. And so what would end up happening is, when you define yourself based on those qualities, you really start to, if you fail, if you stumble at all, you feel like you have personally failed. And so that component of a character arc, I related to quite a bit. Taking personal heat for failure, taking personal connection to that. I thought that was specifically one of those components of the plot that really stuck with me personally. And I thought that was really something. And that's where I really got to understand the character and connect with them.
Yep. I feel like Asuka also, like, she doesn't have anything other than her achievements. She knows that like a lot of people don't like her very much. She's not a very kind person, and she doesn't really have a lot of close relationships. Like, I think that Asuka, and like this is going to come up later, I'm sure, but Asuka suffers from the same thing that Shinji does, is that nobody loves her. So without her achievements, if she's not admired and she's not loved, what is she?
Yeah, it's sad. It genuinely is a very sad show. And you look at with Hideki Anno's whole like he obviously drew a lot from his own personal depression in making the show, but you see that honest portrayal of depression in all of its forms in the show. And I feel like that's not something that someone who's heard about depression in like a book can create. Like, it's not like you can just say, oh, I've seen people depressed before, I can figure out what the gist of it is. You have to really understand depression, insecurity, and pain to really reflect that in such a raw fashion on screen like that.
Yeah, it's a really raw show, especially Neon Genesis. Like, I don't think any other series, and I like a lot of the Eva series, but I don't think any other series has quite captured what the first one did.
Yeah, that original, and by the first one you mean that initial run of the anime, and not up to end of Evangelion, and not like, say, any of the other manga or Rebuild, right? Yeah, cool. So make sure we're creating the right parameters. I feel like we'll mention the manga and other stories later on.
Yeah. So getting into it though, what is your biggest takeaway from Eva?
The biggest takeaway? That's a good question, actually. There's a few takeaways. For one, as I've gotten older, I relate more and more to Misato, which is terrible. The idea of this burned out millennial who is stuck at a job, doesn't pay them enough money for their work, and forces them to work extra hard, and taking care of kids, but when you still see yourself as a kid, essentially, dealing with trauma that no one is there to help you out with. That's a very relatable feeling to a lot of millennials. The struggle, but also being forced to evolve, even though time has passed you by in so many ways. You're forced to hear other people, and that really, I think, as an adult, I think I watch again and go, that's a really powerful message. I'm not saying it's 1-to-1, but
no,
thankfully not.
I get that. I think Misato is very relatable. I think my biggest takeaway from the series is that mentality thing. It's kind of death, isn't it? And it's this giving up and just keeling over and dying, right? Because the world's a really scary place and life's really hard, but Shinji decides that no matter how hard it's been, no matter how many times he's been hurt and hurt other people, it's still worth it for him to be alive and to make those connections with other people.
That's a powerful thing right there.
Yeah, it is. It's it's so worth it to be alive and be in other people's lives, no matter how, pain is a part of life, and that in and of itself is a very powerful thing, I think.
I hear you. It's not depressing. I mean, the show is a sad show. You meant to bring it up. No,
I think it's hopeful. I think it's hopeful at the end of the day.
I do think the end of Evangelion is very optimistic. I think the part that gives a lot of people pause is that the path to get there is so sad.
Yeah.
That there's so much sadness in the show up until that point, because human life deals with so many troubles and difficulties, and it's just a very. I think I agree with that too. But also I think the idea that human connection is important, and you will hurt yourself by putting yourself out there, but at the same time you have to experience pain to feel anything good. Oh, we got a super chat. The guy 493, thank you for the super chat. Shinji I always interpreted as repressed bi, not the first Ano protag to be bisexual either. See Noriko Takaya Takaya from Gunbuster, right? Noriko.
What a great! I thought the first thing that you were saying was a great segue, but this is an even better segue.
Yeah, we want to talk about first Noriko or Shinji.
I'm actually not familiar with Noriko, so I feel like we should just hop right into to our Kaworu. Sorry.
Yeah.
I see it more. I think I look at his name more than I hear it out loud, so I always pronounce it phonetically. But Kaworu.
I hear you there. Yeah, no, I'll touch on Noriko briefly too, because that was brought up, and I think it's fun to compare. For those of you who aren't aware, Noriko is from a series called Gunbuster, where it's basically starts off as a military training mech series, where it starts off very generic in a sense. Aliens from outer space are invading. Humanity has to build mech suits to fight them. Here's a really big mech suit, and the main girl, who is basically this, kind of every girl kind of protagonist at first. She's she's kind of the runt of the party. She's not the best, but she ends up becoming the pilot of this massive machine. And it's at first off, it seems very much like a typical mecha series. And you're thinking, okay, they're gonna go on adventures, whatever. But what's playing in the background of the whole series up until this point is the idea of time dilation.
Ooh,
the idea that so you understand time dilation, right?
I'm a big time travel nerd. I love that sort of thing.
Heck yeah. Okay, cool. It makes it simpler. But for the chat, time dilation is the concept that, it is a proven concept. It's been tested with the GPS system, global positioning system that we use currently. Gravity and momentum affect how fast you travel through time. So your perspective of time will alter depending on how close to gravity you are, how fast you're moving. And for the intents and purposes of the show, the closer you travel to the speed of light, the faster time passes around you. So for you, a second might pass. You might not. Your body will age as a second just passed. But around you, a year might have passed if you're traveling like 99% the speed of light. And to fight the aliens, you have to travel through space. So they're traveling through the cosmos at like near light speed. When they come back, all their friends are like in the middle ages. They'll go on separate missions, and when they come back again, like one's only been gone for them like a few months, the other one it's been like a few years. And so it deals with this interesting relationship that forms between two of the pilots over the course of their lives, even though they're out of sync with each other. And because the main character is in this massive mech that has to be at the front lines, she's like 14 years old or 16, whatever it is, and she'll come back from missions, and this girl who she has a relationship with is now like in her 40s or 50s. And so it becomes this very complicated narrative. It's incredible. I don't want to say more than that because the ending is genuinely, like, simultaneously really emotional and uplifting, but also really sad in so many ways. It's a great show. You should really watch it. And it's only like 6 episodes. It's no VA.
Yeah, I looked it up on the good old wiki, and yeah, I think I'll give it a watch. I'll give it a watch.
Oh yeah,
I love that sort of thing. So.
And again,
it was released in 2010. Okay.
It was okay. So it was released in the 80s originally.
Then it was. So there was. Okay.
Oh, it gets a little complicated. So there was a sequel called Die Buster that was made in 2000s, I think 2006, 2007, around the time of Gurren Lagann, and you can tell this is more like Die Buster feels more like Studio Trigger than it does Gainax. And they re-released both as a movie. Gunbuster and Die Buster, and that came out in 2010, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, back to Evangelion.
Anyway, yeah, back to Eva. Yeah.
Shinji sexuality. I think we should break this down though into a couple different answers because there's many different versions of Shinji.
Yes, there is.
So what version do we want to focus on? Do we want to focus on
I feel like original anime is like a good first thing to focus on.
Agreed.
Let's talk about him, and then we can kind of talk on the
I think it's the best way of doing it because there's so many versions, and you and I were talking off chat one time about all the different like variations of Evangelion.
I mean, like in some like Shinji is just like straight up homophobic. In other, like they canonically kiss. Like it's it goes all over the place, and sometimes both.
Yeah, and then there's the Shinji Ikari Racing Project where Rei and Asuka try to convert Shinji to being straight because they can't compete with Kaworu.
Yeah, I mean, how could you honestly compete with something like that? Honestly?
Yeah, honestly, at that point, the only solution is just to give up.
Yeah, give up. Maybe Asuka and Rei should.
They never consider polyamory.
Yeah, or they never consider being lesbians either. So right? There's so many options. We got a stinky in the chat.
Oh my goodness! Well, you know what? Let's see what this one does. It looks like they're just just lurking for now.
Yeah, you can hang out and chat.
Actually, let's look at a few of the comments before we really dive in. So,
I think he's saying no one, not Noon.
Yeah.
So Sabine's here, a common troll on my channel. But yeah, let's look through the chat.
Everyone knows that Mari wins the Shinji Bowl anyway.
Like Mari.
We'll get to Mari later.
Mari.
Not a, it's a shame. She had so much potential as a character, and it's one of the many reasons I think Rebuild just doesn't.
It doesn't hit the mark. It's so. We'll get into this, but I think people who Rebuild, it was their first exposure to Evangelion. It's like, it's fine, but like, it is so different from everything else in the Evangelion series. And there's like, you could like, oh, well, it's because, he was saying goodbye to the series, or it was supposed to be different, but like, it's just thematically, it's not even in the same ballpark. Even when you look at like the silly things like Mini Eva and stuff like that, like it's so different, right?
It feels very like generic. It's
Yeah.
just something that no other Ava feels like. Nothing else feels generic quite like Rebuild. It's disappointing.
Yeah, it's like if Rebuild had been my first exposure to Ava, I probably wouldn't have watched any more Ava, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it just would have been a fine-ish mecha series, and then you would have moved on to something else. Wouldn't have had the cultural staying power it does.
No.
And I also don't like what they do with Asuka. I think
No. Oh, Dad, don't get me fucking sorry. Don't
no,
get me
yeah,
started on like Rebuild Asuka, and people are like, oh well, she is a different character, but like, dude, it's kind of weird that they're portraying a 14-year-old girl like that. Like, come on.
but no, you don't understand, Krim. She's 28, really. Just doesn't age past the, which is just so weird.
But like, if you say that, I mean, like, it's like they want to have their. Sorry, I'm getting getting all impassioned about this. It's like
Mhm.
they want their cake. They want to have their cake and eat it too, because like she's like kind of being pervy around Shinji, and Shinji is still 14.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they want it to not look creepy that she's being weird towards Shinji, but it's like, oh, but she's 28, so it's fine if she's having sexual relationships with adults. It's just like, I
It's
don't
just
like it.
weird.
It's weird.
It's just a weird concept. And I don't like it. All right, so first point of discussion: Exhibit A. Karu and Shinji from the '90s anime series, the original.
Yes.
These two dorks. Okay, so I think first and foremost we have to discuss. It's kind of wild. A lot of people who go into Evangelion today will see all the fan art of Kaoru and think, "Oh, he's like a major character. He must be in there from the start." I was
Yeah.
talking to my friend Crystal, who's been on stream a couple times in a couple videos, and she had just watched Evangelion, the original series, for the first time as an adult, just this past year,
Mm-hmm.
and she was thinking the whole time, like, "Where's Kaoru? When does Kaoru show up?" Because she had heard all these stories about Kaoru, and you see him at the very end, and for
For
her that
one
was like,
episode.
that's disorienting. Because if you go in without any expectations, there's no like there's nothing there. It's not like, oh, you expect this character to show up. You don't know who this character is. But
Yeah. And like, there's a few reasons for that. Um, you want to get into that now, or do you want me to?
let's get into it right now. Why not? You can go into it.
Okay. So Evangelion also would not exist without Devilman. There's a
Mm.
lot of anime that would not exist without Devilman. And Kaoru is a subversion and a deconstruction of characters like Ryo, Asuka, and Griffith from Berserker. Berserker came first, right?
Berserk
I think it
came,
was 90.
Berserk came
Yeah,
out in
Berserker
90.
came first.
Yeah,
92, I think. So yeah, it
yeah.
came first. But he's like a deconstruction and like a subversion of that character. Where you meet this guy who is kind of a stranger to Shinji, but like they bond immediately. They're very close immediately, and you would think that Kaoru would betray Shinji, but he gives up his life for him.
Mm.
When usually before this, a character like Kaoru, like we were all expecting Kaoru to turn on him, to violate Shinji, or to hurt him or kill him in some way. Because every other character, like Kaoru, that's exactly what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And it's
but I
important to
think
mention too, at this point in the show, Shinji has no one left in his life to talk to.
yes,
Asuka's going through one of the most disturbing mental breakdowns I think in the whole
yeah,
show. Rei
yeah,
Ray's kind of gone, sort of, kind of. Misato's has been sucked into this conspiracy and is like completely like obsessed with unraveling the truth.
Akage's, what's his name's gone.
Kaji's dead.
Akage's dead.
His dad was never all that useful to begin with. All his friends are
All
gone.
his
Toji's
friends,
leg's been blown off. Ripped off.
yeah, and he's not very happy with Shinji because Shinji ripped him apart, basically.
Exactly.
So Shinji's feeling pretty shitty. And again, like characters like Kaoru have come in the past and bonded with, like, become childhood friends with a very vulnerable young man who has nothing left, and then later in life go on to violently betray, violate, and or kill the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Especially
I
Ryu.
also
I think Ryu from Devilman, especially is an
Ryo,
example of
yeah,
that. Ryo.
yeah, Ryo's kind of like the first stinky white-haired anime boy that started it all.
And
Griffith.
extremely gay for its for the
Yeah, well, Griffith also, although I haven't actually sat down and watched Berserk, I think it's infamous for
oh
what
yeah.
the what Griffith's infamous for being an awful person that violates the main character and the both the male main character and the female lead as well.
Yeah, Guts and Casca. Yeah, Griffith especially. Well, the thing about Griffith too that's I think about, and it's funny we mentioned Devilman, but I like I know in Devilman it's literally Satan, but like in
Yeah.
Griffith, I think reminds me a lot of in Paradise Lost, how they portray Satan in that epic poem. Because in Paradise Lost, the intention is that you're supposed to get on his side, even though you know he has insidious intention. And actually, in Berserk, you know from the start, Griffith will betray Guts. You know that from the very beginning. You know that he's going to do something to hurt Guts, and yet the way it's written, you forget that. You kind of get on his side a little bit. Like, even when he outright says, I'm only in this for myself and my dream, and I see you as a pawn I can use, the way it's written, you're kind of brought into you're kind of charmed by Griffith at first. You kind of think, no, maybe he has something here. And, of course, he betrays your trust the moment you trust him the most, and shows you when the chips are down, he's just a terrible person. Like, when it comes down to it, he will sell you out for personal gain in a second and not lose any sleep over it.
And then you have Kaoru come along, and you're expecting the same thing from him. We've seen this trope before. He is going to betray Shinji, and we think for a moment that he did, but you realize that he's been just as manipulated as Shinji is, and that in the end he doesn't want. And it kind of gives, like, it's a refrigerator moment. You kind of start to wonder, like, wait a minute, the angels weren't trying to destroy Lilith, because he goes down there thinking that it's Adam. He thinks that it's his body, right? Because in case people don't know, Kaoru is Adam. Like, he is the vessel of Adam. He's like carrying his soul, basically. So he wants to become himself again. And down there, and it's Lilith. And the reason that, like, the angels have been trying to get down there is because they are trying to basically save their forebearer, their mom. They're basically trying to save their mom. And
basically,
once you realize that, it kind of paints the angels in an entirely different light. But also, instead of like, he knows that if he did this, if he like united with Lilith, he can become this all-powerful being. But he doesn't do that. He, like, you know what, Shinji, like, it would be better if you killed me. And that, I think, I have feelings about that too, because I don't think. Let's not get into that too soon. But but I have a lot of feelings about how Kaworu is as a character and his personality. But we won't get it. That's a bit of a deep cut. We'll save that for later.
Agreed. And I think one thing too that's interesting that you brought up right there is that the angel, if we can contextualize as how the angels up until this point have interacted with humanity, and this is something that I think is more apparent in the second watch of Eva than your first watch.
Yes.
But if you really watch what the angels are doing, very few of them are actively violent towards people, or like the first angel we see, he isn't attacking.
He's just exploring.
Yeah, he doesn't attack. What's that say?
I always, like, I read a very good essay. I think there's this person on Tumblr named Adam that goes by the URL Adam Waru, and goes on this essay that the angels are mostly acting as scouts and researchers. The ones that do get violent, all they're trying to do is get Adam because
Mm.
they believe that Adam is down in terminal dogma, right?
Mm-hmm. And the thing also is, you look at the angels that are violent. Most of them only attack like military vessels or the Avas. It's all self-preservation for the most part.
Yeah, they're doing exactly what the humans are doing.
Mm-hmm. The most destructive one is what is the one that's like where the one that Ava Unit 1 eats. I forget the name of it. It's right before. It's when Shinji goes like at 400% synchronization and like goes nuts. But like that one angel is the most vicious of them all in terms of violence. But that's again directed towards people, towards entities that have hurt the other angels. So again, it's in that sense of like, are these creatures really malicious, or are they just preserving themselves? And in fact, I would say the last three angels that we see, each of them try to understand the pilots in some direct way. In violating ways, yes, but that's what they're trying to do in some ways. They're trying to understand, and it's very invasive.
Yeah. Laylel is a very good example of that, I think.
That's the one that Rei encounters, right?
No, that's the one. I just sent you a list of the angels.
Actually, that'd be good if I had that on hand.
Yeah, it's the one that like has like this area that if you enter it, like you start living in like the Laylel's world, basically, like you're hallucinating a world.
Yes.
Right? Bardael, which is the one that infects Unit 4, I believe.
No, it's Unit 4, then Unit 3, I think.
Yeah, but the one that like infects Toji's Ava.
That's Unit 3, I'm pretty sure.
I think because I think Unit 3 like basically blew up in America.
Blew up. Anyway, it's one of those two. It's one of those two.
That one is one of the more violent ones.
Yeah, and the way it's dealt with is one of the most vicious ones.
Yeah, where it's ripped apart by Shinji's. Well, he's not ripped apart by Shinji.
The
Gendo,
uses
the dummy plug, and it rips it apart. And like, can you imagine? Because like, I think like realizing that like everything that the Ava feels, Shinji can feel. So he's feeling like this body being ripped apart in his fingers, and he's feeling the basically humanoid flesh in his teeth. Like no wonder he's so fucked up.
Yeah, genuinely, like that's so people. I remember when it was really popular to make jokes like saying, "Oh, Shinji's such a wimp. Why wouldn't he want to get in that robot?" I'm like, well, why would he want to after his friend is crushed in his finger? And the crazy thing is, I think, is that Shinji only gives up, doesn't want to pilot in 4 occasions in the show. First is when they first meet Sachiel. So the first time he sees the robot, why would he want to pilot a giant death machine? Yep. After Shamshell, he wants to give up because he's just traumatized. But after that, he's a pretty solid run. He doesn't really... He's pretty... Not gung-ho at times, sure, but like he's more into it until he almost kills Toji. And then he's like, yeah, I don't want to ever do that again. Which... Yeah, that makes sense. And then when Kaworu dies, he's like traumatized, which fair. You know what? Okay,
Gone died, but Shinji killed him.
Killed him. There you go.
And it wasn't like Toji either. Like those moments where he's just holding Kaworu's body in his hands. Like I think that's like 1 minute and 30 seconds where he's just staring at him, not doing anything before he like crushes him to death.
It's a lot. It's a heavy moment.
Yeah.
But I think like Ariel, Armacel, and Kaworu, Tabris, are the ones that I think have the most like direct emotional communication with the pilots.
Yeah.
And I think it's no surprise that each one is the termination of their character arc as it is in the original show before End of Ava.
Yeah.
And for all of them, it's an incredibly painful experience. And I can't tell you which experience is the worst for the pilots because they're all awful in different respects. Like, obviously, Shinji has to kill Kaworu, and that's traumatizing. But there is an intimacy and a kindness to Kaworu. Is a mutual fascination between Shinji and Kaworu that ends tragically because of circumstance. But like Armisael kills Rei too,
Yeah.
and Ariel is like, well, there's no nice way of putting it. The invasion in Asuka's mind is horrifying.
Well,
Um,
it's I mean, like it's not like it's pretty explicitly like
Assault, yeah.
yeah, and then you get with the EVA Unit 5s, like the
Oh, the mass
mass pregnancy.
production. Oh God, that's a whole other discussion.
And
Those are
like
freaky.
to think that like they're being powered by Kaoru's mind, and like you got to wonder like would he find that like would he find that a violation? Like
Mm.
how do you think that Kaoru would feel about it? Like
Well, the thing is
knowing
also
that
with.
he
Oh,
is
sorry, I
being
cut you off there. I'm
used.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Knowing that he's being used to viciously violate this pilot, like this person that was honestly a lot like him and Shinji, you know?
Yeah, exactly, and it's horrifying. And again, with the dummy plug system, the first set of dummy plugs is based on Rei's mind, and we see
Yep.
that being created, and we see Karu being turned into the not turned in, but it's interesting though, isn't it? With Evangelion, there's this reoccurring theme of people using life,
Children. Yeah.
children especially, or parents or mothers, and exploiting them for like basically
Violence.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically you're a dog of the military in your life, and even after you're dead, they're still gonna exploit your whatever they can take from you.
Yeah.
Uh, in a way that's deeply upsetting, in a way that I think doesn't get talked about a lot with Ava. Like we talk about the characters a lot, but we don't talk about like the really disturbing moral implications of almost everything that happens. Not enough
Before
anyway.
before we really get into Shinji and Kaoru's relationship, though,
Mm.
one thing I do want to speak about Kaoru in particular is that like the implications that we never see, that are honestly, it's one of those. You know, I like to allude to like horror movies in this, with like Alien is a really good example, and it keeps being used. But like back then, when like the shadows were just a little too blurry, that's like, am I seeing something there? It's kind of like that,
Mm.
where like you don't really see Kaoru being directly exploited or really interacting with Seele or Nerve, other than that one time he's with Shinji. Um, but you know that like he identifies heavily with Rei. Like he tells her straight up, it's like, I'm like you. And like, yeah, maybe he just means that they're the same type of being, because they are. Like
Yeah.
she's Lilith, he's Adam. They're both inhabiting humanoid bodies. Um, but there's some implications there that like you get like Sele's kind of like a religious culty thing,
Yeah.
right?
That's,
It,
I
and
see why
like
you
you
watched it when
don't
you're deconstructing your religious beliefs, because that's like
yeah.
that's right there. They're doomsday
Yeah,
cults, basically.
yeah. I also watched I also read The Golden Compass around that time, and it's so I was going through the ringer. But
That's a good 1-2
the
punch of like
combination,
anti-religious kind of stuff to read
yeah,
or watch.
but you like it's not shown as much in the original anime, but it was planned to, and I'm sure we're going to get to that. Um, but Kaworu is a very cultured young man. He knows how to play various instruments. He's very intelligent and well spoken, but like he kind of gives off the impression of being sheltered. Like he doesn't understand the implication of asking Shinji to sleep with him. It seems.
Seems
uh,
one of you can
like
read that one of
you
two
know,
ways.
yeah, I mean, like he could literally be asking Shinji to sleep with him, but like
Yeah.
there's like an innocence to Kaoru where he doesn't understand like some of what he's doing might be seen as a little crass or a little like, because I don't think he ever intends to make Shinji uncomfortable, but it's like he doesn't realize like, even if you kind of read his intentions as romantic, it's like he doesn't realize that what he's doing could make Shinji uncomfortable. So it just like, God. And like you see how Rei was raised. So like if there is like if Kaoru and Rei are mirrors of one another, the implications there are they're kind of stinky.
Okay, so we got another super chat in. Can I read this out loud? Gerlo, thank you for the super chat. So out of the Greek definitions of love, agape, philia, storge, ludus, or eros, which do you think feel best encapsulates Shinji and Kaoru's relationship? Now, that's a very good question, and I think we're going to have to
thoughts about this.
And that's the thing also, because there's multiple versions of the two characters. So what I'm going to do right now, for the sake of convenience, is I'm going to bring up the different types of love on screen, so we just can list it for the chat so they all understand. Eros, philia, agape. So here are the different types of love. Okay, here's a good image. Let me bring this up just so we have a good visual for you guys. All right, cool. So we have here. So, for those who are unaware, Eros is the passionate, lustful kind of love. Intimacy between two people, their bodies, erotica, basically. Philia is friendship, despite the word how a philia is like now kind of another word for a paraphilia is kind of a word for a fetish. Now, in the Greek word for love, it was friendship, so intimate connection between two people. No romance, no sexual, but just two people who are really close. Ludus, playful and flirtatious, a little flirty, little nudge, but nothing at this point necessarily mean or intense or erotic. Agape, selfless Christian love. So love that you love someone so deeply, you're willing to give up yourself. And pragma, which is time-tested, loyal love. In this doesn't apply. It's self-love. This is the kind of the core of the whole show. Pragma, obviously, we can just knock that one right off.
That's a Pure Flix graphic there, my friend.
Pure Flix? Oh God, how'd I? Oh, I feel disgusted. But ignoring that, I guess Christian love would make any sense either because it's Greek, not. So ignore the Christians, Pure Flix. They're biased.
I have a big opinion about this.
Yes,
I have a big one, big brain one.
All right, let's do it.
And you might not get it at first. I'm sure that you get it, but some of the people in the audience might not get it. And I'm speaking of the classical definition. I think it's platonic love. Now, you hear platonic love these days, and you're like, oh, that's philia, right? But it's not. Platonic comes from Plato, and it was his reading of Achilles and Patroclus. And he was saying that their love was so intense that it encapsulates and transcends all of these kinds of love.
Exactly.
So that's how I read it, especially like, sorry if I'm talking too much about my blorbos, but like, especially if you look at the translation choices, the way that Kaoru says "I love you" to Shinji is actually pretty vague. Like, it does mean love, but it's like it's kind of up in the air what exactly he means by that. Now in the English version, so the original dub in 1997 decided that, like, okay, so we can either say I like you, and it can be vague, but it won't be as meaningful as love. But love makes it a little bit less vague. And I think their decision to go with love was the correct decision. You're not going to get a perfect translation, but I think that was the most accurate way to translate what Kaoru is trying to communicate in that moment.
Exactly. I agree with that sentiment. I mean, I think it's... But wait, Krim, aren't you implying that they had the third option? They could have said that Shinji was worthy of Kaoru's grace. Because that's totally the most accurate adaptation.
I mean, in a way, that is also being communicated. Like, that's also communicated here, because Kaoru is this supernatural being, but he's also a 14-year-old boy, just like Shinji is. He can be both at once. So.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think personally it would be more agape a little bit, where it's this kind of selfless empathy for someone else, a selfless love for someone else, because Kaoru gives up his life for Shinji's future, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, he realizes that his continued existence will put Shinji in jeopardy. And
Yeah.
that's not the only reason he acts, but it's a reason he acts. It's what, because again, in Evangelion, no one ever does anything for one reason. There's always a few different reasons. It's a multi. That's what I love about the show. There's multiple reasons why characters act. He will do things for Shinji because it makes his future better, and he gives up his life very quickly. He makes a decision very quickly, I should say, for his future. I do agree with you about platonic, where it's that kind of like pure, deep feeling for one another, but it's not sexual. I don't think it's not playful. It's not really flirty. It's more just raw,
And
passion.
that's where we get into some trouble, I think, because we missed out a lot on the Kaoru we were supposed to get.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know about that.
Oh yeah, I do. Before you get into that, though, there is a super chat I want to read because that's gonna be a whole other discussion. I think.
Yeah.
So the guy 493, thank you for the super chat. Honestly, due to how Kaoru was raised, he might not have a concept of romantic love, at least not in the sense that we know it, or even gender for that matter. And I don't disagree with you on that one. Again, this ties in with what we were discussing, what Krim was talking about before, where we don't really know what Kaoru experienced before beating Shinji. A lot of it is left up to interpretation. And because of that, there's a lot of weight behind certain things he does and says. It's possible that he just sees love as a general concept, and there's no difference between sexual, romantic, or friendship love to him. It's just an intense feeling that drives his actions. And I think a good case study of that is how Rei interprets feelings. Rei, as a character, I always like to believe Rei isn't necessarily a character who doesn't feel emotion. She's a character who doesn't understand how to express emotion, or understand how to interpret emotion. And I think that if we read Kaoru through that same lens, I think a lot of his actions make even more sense. Whereas Shinji has all these societal expectations and is doing a lot of things because society tells him to do things. Kaoru's kind of liberated from that, and as a result, his actions can't really be judged on that level. I think anyway. What do you think?
I mean, and I don't want to get too into it, but I do. But there is a lot of like there's a lot of things that we missed out on, but I don't think that Kaoru is uneducated in the same way that Rei is. It's kind of like I think he has this sort of like worldly characterization, but also innocent characterization that makes it seem like he's done a lot of reading. He's done a lot of like maybe private tutoring or something. Like, we don't know how Kaoru knows the things that he knows, but we know that he's not completely uneducated. That's a pretty consistent characterization of him across all the series. And we would have gotten some of that again.
If they stuck to the original plan.
If they stuck to the original plan. And I feel like we got to start getting into that.
Yeah, so
like, it's very relevant to Kaoru's characterization.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to bring that up now too. The original plan for Evangelion as we understand it.
Basically, while he's doing that, the long and short of that is a bunch of the animators on the EVA project threatened to walk out.
Yeah.
And one of those reasons was because of how uncomfortable they were with Kaoru. And one of the ultimatums was like, we're not doing this shit. If you make us do this shit, we'll drop it. You have to drop either this or that. And I can't remember what the other thing was, but Anno decided that the other thing was more important than Kaoru. And honestly, probably a better decision. I remember when I was reading about it, I was like, yeah, that was probably the correct decision.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't translate this, but
I'm not even talking about like the cat version of Kaoru. Like, that's like a whole other fucking kettle of tea. But this was late into production. Like, the boards were already finished. but are you aware of the scenes that were cut?
I'm aware of some. So there is, so I've read what is in the proposal for Evangelion. I read it years and years ago, and I was refreshing on some details. So obviously there's a human. First off, they call them apostolos as opposed to angels in the original
Mm-hmm.
text, which again it's superficial. Ultimately, is an apostles and an angel. At the end of the day, it's still all. Oh, read in Troy McClure's voice. Oh God, I can never do voices. You're just the worst person to ask this. My voice sounds like Alan Alda and only Alan Alda at any given moment. Dear Anthony, what's the deal with Kaworu in Neon Genesis Evangelion? You know what I mean. I'm not gonna even try anything. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Somebody is asking. I don't understand what's up with the missing out on Kaworu. Was the series cut short? Was this a homophobic issue? Yes,
Yeah.
it was a homophobic issue.
Yeah.
With the Kaworu stuff, and this is what Anthony's pulled up right now is a little bit different than what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a handful of scenes that were cut, basically at the end, right before they were animated. Oh, we love a fail girl. We love Misato.
Oh, she's great. She's so great. She looks like extra fail girl.
I would be friends with Misato IRL. I'll be honest.
100%. 100%.
I would not let her stay over at my house though. Absolutely not.
I would.
Sorry.
I don't know if I trust her taste in beer either. Lol looks like garbage beer, quite frankly. I don't know if I trust her opinions in beer. But anyway, as you were.
Well, a couple key scenes that were cut very late was a scene of Kaworu and Shinji playing cello together.
Mm-hmm.
This has been included in later iterations of
Death
the
and
series.
Rebirth, I think, especially.
Yeah, Death and Rebirth. It was included in Mini Ava and like a bunch of the other. I think a Campus Apocalypse, which I think you were looking at up a little bit further.
Yeah, Campus
Like
Apocalypse is. Yeah.
Them being an instrument together is like a key thing, and that's like kind of hints that Kaworu is kind of like a cultured guy. Like he's probably read a lot of classics. Like he references that sort of thing in other Eva media, and like
he's introduced humming Ode to Joy.
Exactly. He's introduced humming like fucking Beethoven. Like he, we also miss out on a scene of them skinny dipping together, and we miss out on a kissing scene. So those are three big scenes that we didn't see. There was a couple other ones, but like it kind of like blows this whole like Kaworu doesn't feel any sort of sexual or romantic attraction towards Shinji out of the water, or that he doesn't know what gender or sex is out of the water. Like he knows, like he's sheltered, but he's not stupid. He is a 14-year-old boy. Like, come on, give him some credit. Yeah.
Now I have here a highlight of the details with. I'm just going to read it verbatim because I feel like we won't miss a single detail this way. So in early designs, Kaworu was depicted as a schoolboy with a pet cat who could switch into an angel form. But Kaworu would not be the angel would be the cat who was controlling the boy, which is wonky. He was going to be in 2 episodes rather than 1, but Anno was the one who ultimately cut him down to 1 episode. And in the manga, we actually see more of Kaworu, but we'll get to that later. So, Nikisa, according to these, characters divided, Messenger, Rei. His name was decided late into production, beyond the initial proposal stage. Now, Kaworu was the only characters not named by Anno, and in fact, it was Akio Satsukawa who expanded on Anno's initial outline.
Mm-hmm.
And the staff was shocked. They were going to the episode director and animator was going to resign. He didn't like one of the animators did not want to. Actually, Shinji Higuchi, who was the namesake of the character Shinji, didn't want to be referred to as Shinji-kun by Kaworu and almost resigned. Just a whole bunch of messy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, another super chat. Brightside Dylan. Thank you for the super chat, Brightside Dylan. What's up, Anthony? Would it be possible for you and some friends to react to the fan story, STIK, the My Hero Academia Ruby fan fiction on a live stream? Yeah, sure. I can get some people down for that.
Two of the things I can't stand condensed into one story. Wow.
So, Krim, you're coming to that one, right?
No, absolutely not. Count me out.
Well, Krim, you love Ruby, so actually, you might love to hear this. Ruby is now officially...
No, I don't love Ruby.
Ruby is now unofficially... You're not able to stream Ruby anywhere right now.
Oh, no.
It's been taken off every single platform as of yesterday.
As much as I don't like it,
that's really messed up. Yeah, it is. It has all to do with Crunchyroll was the last place you could watch it legally. They took it off. Warner Brothers Discovery, by shuttering Rooster Teeth, almost all that's gone. There's now no other way to legally watch Ruby outside of renting old DVDs or physical media or torrenting right now.
You know what they say. Yo ho, me hearties, yo ho.
Yeah, gotta be a pirate. Again, piracy is going to save media. That's how it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Anyway, so Kaworu was condensed, and it's ironic, I think, that Rebuild, one of the first things they did was expand Kaworu's role to the whole show, whole saga, essentially.
He had such an impact on the LGBT community in Japan. Like, it's funny because at the same time, like, I know that people are like, Ellen DeGeneres, cringe these days, but like, Ellen like triggered like a big movement in North America, and like my mom came out and left my dad because of Ellen DeGeneres, and like that is reflected. Like the same thing happened when Kaworu was depicted in Evangelion. Is that like a lot of people in Japan like resonated with him and really liked him, because before that, every character like him was an asshole who tried to hurt and kill everybody. So
it doesn't help that you also, if you look at like, and again, I think it's a little different with Yuri. With Yuri, there was a lot of good shoujo work.
Yeah, but there's issues with Yuri that
there's issues undeniably. But I'm saying like there was just more of a body of work you could like watch.
Yeah.
That were more positive.
But it was like a lot of girls love, because when I was younger, I don't know what it's like anymore. It's so weird that I'm seeing Yuri and Yaoi used as just general terms, because when I was younger, shoujo ai and shonen ai meant that it was just a general like non-sexual thing, and then yaoi and yuri were specifically like, oh no, like this is hentai, this is porn.
Yeah, essentially.
Like a lot of the shoujo ai was just class S stuff, which is, that's a whole problem.
Yeah, that's a whole discussion right there. And some class S stuff is decent. I think Maria Samagamitu is a pretty decent series. Yeah. I'm sure you love that because it takes place in a Catholic school, though.
I just homophobia works a lot different in Japan than it does here.
Yeah,
I think, and people don't seem to realize that.
But you also got stuff like Sailor Moon. You got stuff like Rose of Versailles. Princess Knight existed, but if you look at like BL, I should say, at the time, you got a lot of stuff that fell back onto old tropes. Or you got stuff like Banana Fish, which was a very mature, not very mainstream title. Because that's the thing. It existed. It just wasn't the kind of thing a lot of people watched or read.
I still haven't sat down and watched that one, but I've been meaning to.
It's good, but it's rough. It's dark, yeah, you have to get in the right headspace. It's a lot. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a lot to read. Because I watched Banana Fish after watching Yuri on Ice. I had no idea what Banana Fish the manga was, and I'm like, yeah, good lighthearted. That was charming. What comes next? Oh, this show looks kind of like Yuri on Ice. I guess I'll watch that. And then nothing.
Anthony, you would not have survived the asylum that I was born in. You do not want to know what my first foray into that shit was.
Oh, you have to tell me. Was it Gravitation or Loveless?
No, it was worse.
Oh god, because those were both bad too.
It was no. I think you were about to say it was Dramatical Murder.
Oh god.
But I'm like, look, I am famously like a stinky little guy. Like I love awful, problematic media. So I mean, like I love it, and I still love it.
Valid.
It's you can't play it on modern computers though, and I tried to play it like
Oh.
a few months ago, and I couldn't get it going. Like I would need to get like a fucking virtual machine going to play it these
Mm.
days. You know, whatever.
Well, that's like how what I was when I was like, you know what, I want to read a nice visual novel. I want to read a visual novel. What was it one of my
What?
friends recommended? Oh yes, Saya no Uta, Song of Saya. Are you familiar with
I
that one?
hold on a second. Let me just. I
Yeah,
think it
I
sounds familiar. Let me look at an image of it.
oh
Song of.
you'll recognize an image of it, sure enough.
Oh yeah, no, I know exactly what that is. Yeah.
I can't even Google it. I can't Google it
Yeah,
because it's just
it's
instant
so it is
demonetization.
it's bad.
Oh my goodness. No, but people in chat are also recommending talking about Bubblegum Crisis is a good uh, queer show. And again, Gunbuster also had a lot of good stuff too. Um,
Mhm.
anyway, but yeah, that was the initial proposal for Kaoru, and did not didn't work out all that well. So they had to adjust it, and what they came up with was turned to be pretty iconic.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was good. Like even if we did get a very limited viewing of him. Oh, there was another detail that we didn't see,
Mm.
but um, a trigger warning, I guess, for self harm.
Oh,
But originally,
before you say that, we got another super chat.
okay,
I feel like this will be a little easy. I feel like we should get something light out of the way before we go into that. Meow Neon, thank you for the super chat. Not sure if it's Canadian person too. So anyway, not sure if it was intentional or even brought up, but when I was younger, it always seemed likely Karu was designed as a mirror to Rei. Yes, that is
absolutely.
entirely deliberate. Karu is literally a mirror to Rei. He is Adam, she is Lilith. All these vessels for their essence, that is deliberate. You
They
were
were
on the
free.
money there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you were saying, I'm sorry.
Okay, so like trigger content warning for like self harm, but Karu was originally going to actively be someone that self harmed. Like he had scars on his arm and everything, and that's another thing that got cut, which is, whew, it kind of like informs a lot about like that
Yeah.
his obsession with like morbidity and death. Um,
Yeah. And I think that's a lot.
yeah,
But it's all. But then again, let's be fair. There are other characters who self harmed in
yeah,
Evangelion in the
yeah,
same
but like
episode as Kaoru.
yes, exactly. But I think it was more that like Kaoru made a lot of people uncomfortable,
Mm,
specifically Kaoru. It's a
yeah.
lot easier to it's a lot easier to girls are more marketable,
Mm,
especially in anime. Let's be real with that. It's always more marketable to have like a pretty girl on screen than it is for a character like Kaoru, unfortunately. So
yeah. And you can tell that from all the Evangelion merchandise that I don't buy because it's all just Rei and Asuka being in weird costumes. And I really hate how almost every Asuka figure I find. This is a total aside. Almost every Asuka figure I find nowadays is just like her plug suit from uh
from
Rebuild.
Rebuild,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's awful because you only have that one option. You can't get like the old plug suit anymore. Really, at least not. I mean, you can, but I have to dig for it. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And it's like I found that like she was adultified so much
Oh.
in Rebuild when it's like you didn't really like you had like these silly little moments when her like skirt blew up when when she first met the boys, but like you didn't see like an upskirt, you didn't see her like like she's very overly sexualized. It's like they took that small part of her being kind of like awkward, like having like easily getting crushes on boys, but like still being very awkward again, just like Shinji,
Mm-hmm.
because they are mirrors to one another, just like Rei and Kaoru are mirrors to one another. Um, it like
Yeah,
it's
and
just such a bummer to me because like I think that like we should be able to see a character like Asuka being being awkward, but still having like trying to have sexual agency, and try to figure things out on that. You know.
Well, that's one thing about the original series I thought was really interesting. And I mentioned this in like a video I did a while back on Anime Fan Service, which was demonetized pretty quickly when I first put it out. The idea that Asuka's whole thing is that she wants to be seen as more adult. So
Yeah.
there are scenes in the show where she tries to act in a way that she interprets as more adult. But
Mm-hmm.
all of this is out of desperation for validation. It's not actually out of adult wants. It's just she
Yeah.
wants to be perceived as more mature than she really is. And it's shown as like very self-destructive in some respects,
Mm-hmm.
especially
Yeah.
with Kaji.
Like, thank God Kaji's not the dick that like he pretends to be.
Yeah,
But
yeah, like that's how you know that how he's a good character, because it's like he acts like he has like this front of being like a flirty women's man, but he waters he gardens his own watermelon patch and like tries to keep a healthy distance from the 13-year-old girl who's like flirting with them all the time, which is
yeah,
surprisingly uncommon in some anime.
but then you get like Asuka's bond, and I know that we're focusing on Kaoru and Shinji, but like
Mm.
I think it's all interconnected just because of that's how Shinji's mind works. You finally she meets someone that she genuinely likes, and she's completely awful at making a connection with him.
Mm.
She can't, no matter what she does. She can't make that connection. You can see that she's like something's building between them, but she just completely destroys it whenever like Shinji's just kind of sticks his neck out a little bit or is a little bit vulnerable in front of her. And yeah, it
It's
sucks.
heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, and these are two people with such deep-seated trauma that they both. It's the idea of the hedgehog's dilemma in the show. They keep hurting each other the closer they get because unintentionally they keep just, I guess, rubbing up against the other's triggers in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking, especially because, you know, we were talking before about how they kind of switch places. In End of Eva, Shinji is so desperate for a connection after losing Kaoru that he goes to Asuka when she's in a coma, and, you know, it's that scene,
Yeah.
which is disturbing, I think, in a way that people don't always. I feel it's obviously a very gross scene, obviously, that hospital scene, which for reasons that are self-explanatory.
We
But
can't go into detail.
well, you don't need to go in detail specifically for that. But like, you know, but it's also very heartbreaking because you see you see two children, one's in a coma, one's almost comatose, and they're both
so much pain. Yeah.
What's up? So I cut you off there?
Oh no, he's in so much pain. He himself is nearing catatonia. So
Yeah, and there's a scene in the pre-instrumentality sequence where you're not really sure if it's Shinji hallucinating or if he's interacting with the souls of Misato, Rei, and Asuka. But both interpretations leave you with the same result. If it's Shinji interacting with avatars of Asuka in his head, you can see the self-loathing he feels personified in that, projected into that avatar.
mm-hmm.
If it's actually Asuka, though, she's seeing what Shinji did while she was comatose and is repulsed by it. And, like, you see the genuine hurt in that character, in her eyes, in that scene,
Mm-hmm.
in her voice, you know, in her actions. And both options, depending on how you interpret it, are equally depressing for very different reasons.
Yeah.
It just shows how far gone these characters are in some ways, but also how deeply painful human interaction can be, you know. And it is genuinely some of the saddest stuff, I think, in End of Eva. That interaction, it's very, a lot of people overlook it because it's not as flashy as, say, what comes before or after, but that human moment is the core of the film, I think, leading to the resolution, in my opinion.
And, like,
anyway.
No, I believe you. And like this kind of extends to my beliefs in real life, but like I don't think that anybody is beyond redemption, especially like considering Shinji's like a 14-year-old boy. He made like an awful mistake, and I think it would be like inappropriate to like demand that Asuka forgives him for it, but it doesn't mean that Shinji is not beyond redemption and like he deserves all of the shit that he gets.
Mm.
I think that's like an interpretation that a lot of people have that I don't really agree with. Like he's still a child, and while he did something awful and violent, um, you know,
Yeah.
he
No,
doesn't
100%.
mean that he doesn't deserve to live and he doesn't deserve love. Like Asuka doesn't have to be the one that gives that to him, of course. Like if she feels that that was a violent and like too much for her, but like it doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve to go on to be happy in other ways.
Mm. Agreed. And I think one thing that's interesting too is the implication that Gendo is just Shinji if he's like kind of on that pathway. There was a
Yeah.
while back on Twitter, there was this one thread that went a little viral where someone was rewatching Evangelion, and there's a scene early on where I'm gonna bring up the screenshot actually, where you see Gendo. It's pre Second Impact, and you see Gendo coming out of like I forget if he's being picked up from jail or something like that, but he doesn't have his beard yet,
Yeah,
and
and he looks really like Shinji.
yeah, he looks just like Shinji.
No,
Like
a little bit.
yeah, like compare the two, right? Like granted, yeah, there's the hard age lines and the cheekbones and all that, but it's basically Shinji.
Yeah,
And this, I think, and it's obviously deliberate. It's meant to draw parallels before you hear the more explicit stuff later on, later confirmations. But you know,
but him losing Yui could be like it's a parallel to Shinji losing Kaoru, really.
mm-hmm,
And I
yeah,
think that like before we get too well, I don't know if I want to say this as a conclusion or just like as an opener, but I guess my big thesis about the relationship between these two is that if you do not acknowledge that there is a romantic angle to their relationship, I think you're getting less out of Evangelion than you could.
mm, agreed.
I think you're missing out on it. I feel like this about a few series, but like Eva is like one of them. And I'm not saying that you have to think that they're soulmates and they're the ones that should have been gotten together at the end, but Shinji has a few different, very important relationships, and I think they're all valid. But acting as if Kaoru was not an option in his mind and like wasn't one of the people that he felt that way about. I think like you're missing out on a lot of storytelling, on parallels with his father. Like there's so much that can be taken from that, and just it has ripples through the whole series. I think that's why Kaoru left such an impression on fans.
100%. I agree. And it's yeah, and again, the thing also is how Karu is so open about his feelings, whereas other characters are so shielded with them.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. It is definitely one of the many core relationships that Shinji goes through, and one of the core things of the show is how relationships can hurt or can help or harm us in so many ways.
Yeah. I also,
Yeah,
as
I
I
have nothing really added
recall,
to that.
as I recall, when Shinji is talking to the dual entity of Adam and Lilith, like in End of Eva,
Yeah.
it's the Kaoru face. It's the Kaoru entity that tells him that he should keep living, as I recall.
Well, it's also yes, if I remember correctly, it's when the giant naked Ray shows up, essentially,
Yeah,
uh,
the
giant
Kaoru
naked
thing.
Ray.
He's freaked out at first.
Get terrified. It's like a Lovecraftian nightmare come to life, and then like, as though it's somehow less frightening, Karu sprouts out of Ray's back, and that's what comforts him. That kind of
I believe he sprouts out of Ray's
stomach, maybe.
stomach
Yeah,
or
stomach.
groin, and
Wound, maybe.
Ray just kind of bends back. But like, and then Shinji finally just gives in,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think says a lot about how he felt about Kaoru.
Yeah, agreed.
Could we take a very short break so that I can get a drink?
Absolutely. In fact, let's take a short break right now. We'll come right back. I might come back before Krim. Who knows? Let me just bring up the wait screen. We'll be right back. I'll grab a drink as well. We'll be back in a few moments. Okay, I have returned. I do not have my earphones in, so we shall find out here. All right, we're back. Cool. I don't think Crim's on yet. That's okay. You now have me back on here. Hi, how are you? By the way, this is actually the first drink of the night for me. Actually, the tea and the tea were not actually were non-alcoholic. So there you go. So no. I see the poor liver comment. No liver damage today. I learned my lesson after Nostalgia Critic Sailor Moon episode. We're not doing that again. No. This is just one decently strong drink, but nothing too strong. Just a good old Black Russian. Both hosts come back stinking of rum. No rum in this drink. I'm actually not a big rum drinker, honestly. No Long Island iced tea. No. I had. No, this is the first drink I had. It was a cup of decaffeinated Earl Grey. No. Yeah, exactly. I do learn sometimes. Thank you very much. I figure a few things out on occasion. Specifically in this case, not destroying my liver before the age of 40, which is a very important component. That being said, though, if you like coffee liqueur, I urge you to try out Mr. Black. It's a really good coffee liqueur. Quite good, actually, I might add. You might need your liver to function for Friday's stream. Yes, so, again, just to remind everyone, this Friday, I will be jumping on Crim's channel, which is linked in the description, to watch at least 2 Lily Orchard videos. If you haven't got a chance to follow Crim yet, you should do so. He is, as I'm sure you can tell, make sure to chat, you tell him when he comes back, he is a very intelligent person and deserves praise. I had way too much caffeine today, but it was worth it for what I got paid today. That's valid. I appreciate that. Wait, you're under 40? Yeah, I'm under 40. How old do people think I am is the question. Anthony, I just want to say, as a former anime merch seller, I sure saw some shit while trying to get Ava merch. Yeah, that's valid. I think the only Ava stuff I have are like your generic off-brand stuff, but I wish I had more. I actually have an Asuka figure that I had a while ago. I got in college, and fortunately someone dropped a textbook on it. Awful, right? I think it was a Figma, too. You think I'm 15? You think I'm 37? Well, it's between those two times. Good luck. Sai covered one of those today. I'm assuming you will be covering on Friday, and it's a doozy. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I know Sai covered it, and Crimson and I were like, oh, Sai covered it. It gives us, we have a work cut out for us to top that. Figured you from my age range, 40s. Crimson, you're not connected to voice chat anymore, Anthony. I'm not. Oh, I'm not? That would be a problem. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, wow. Okay, am I back? I'm back in. That was weird. Okay, never mind. Let me share my screen. Cool. Screen, and here you go. Cool. Excellent. Cool. I don't know what happened there. That's strange. Anyway, we're back now. That's what matters. So you're back in. So Crimson, we're just talking about Friday's stream. Just to remind chat, if they got in here late, what are we doing again on Friday?
We are covering Lily Orchard's video on the original title is Wholesome Media Bad for You? And it's like, girl, what are you doing? Get out of here. Like, how deep into the fucking rabbit hole have you gone to?
Oh my god, I'm sure it's going to be a very reasonable opinion from Lily with a lot of intelligence and wit to it.
I think that I mean, like, I know that we kind of use Lily a little bit as like, she's not a, maybe he's a punching bag, I'll admit, but like, whatever. I think we can use it to kind of expand on the sort of puritanical politics of fandom when the time comes. So we'll have lots to talk about, I think.
Indeed. We got another super chat, by the way. I'm going to read that right now. Mianyan, thank you for the super chat. Again, Canadian dollars. Krim, so we have some Canadian viewers up there.
The same guy as before.
Yeah. Mionan's great. I do find it fascinating that Shinji is very much the antithesis of young boy pilots at the time. As much as I recall, most boy pilots up until that point were weirdly asexual, including Macross. I would say that's a fair point. A lot of them were not interested in romance; they were more interested in the action. And while they were, what was it? No,
I was going to say sex is one of the main themes of Eva.
Yeah,
for better for worse.
Yeah, because again, all these characters are going through puberty, which is when the most confusing era of feelings comes up. So they're all dealing with that and having to save the world, which is just an uncomfortable experience. But while most shows would play that off as like a funny, awkward thing, because they want to make light of the puberty experience, this plays it for all the horror that comes with it, all the discomfort. But no, yeah, so, and I think also Gundam, I would say Amuro Rei doesn't really... Also, Amuro gives up more than Shinji, alright? He gives up way more often than Shinji does. And the consequences are usually much worse when he gives up. So I'm just pointing it out there right now. Everyone gives Shinji a bad rap. Amuro gives up just as much. It's just, you know...
Also, let's not mince the meat too much. Shinji's not getting into a robot. He's getting into the fucking like cerebral cortex of like a giant human being. Like it's kind of gross. Like that's not a machine. It's literally just a large human.
Yeah, I remember when I was first getting into Evangelion, the fandom was very insistent to avoid calling it a mecha series. They'd refer to it as a kaiju series. And they were very insistent about it. And I agree with them. It's not a mecha series. There are no mechs, aside from Jet alone, in the whole show.
There is mechs, but they don't work. There was that one where Misato, I think Shinji was with her. They went over to was it the American base, or it was like another base in Japan? And they were like sort of showcasing, it's like, this is what's actually going to defeat the angels. And like everything falls apart. Mm-hmm. Like...
import things to espionage and sabotage, but just to get rid of the competition the old-fashioned way. And yeah, people are pointing out that yes, Ava Unit 1 is in fact Shinji's mom, and he is getting inside of his mom. The implications of that are not subtle and are very much outright stated.
Well, that's why the pilots are compatible. It's like, it's kind of getting into this idea that like when you are a baby in your mother's womb, you're not really acting as two separate entities. You're acting as the same entity. And like for people that don't know, unborn babies do kind of mind control their moms a little bit. They send up different hormones and different impulses, and like that's why moms were like, I fucking gotta eat peanut butter and pickles. I don't know why. That's all the baby's doing. So they're just like recreating that bond as a pilot and an Eva. And that's why the reason it works is because the pilot's already been in the mom's womb before. So
exactly. And it's also why it's so interesting with Ava Unit 1 versus Ava Unit 2, because, and this is a bit of a side note, then we'll go back to Kaworu and Shinji across Evangelion continuity, because I feel it's a good time to transition to like the bigger Ava continuity. With Ava Unit 1, it completely assimilates Yui, and she's completely immersed in the robot. She becomes Unit 1. With Ava Unit 2, it doesn't fully immerse Asuka's mom. It only takes part of her, but she's left psychologically scarred afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very interesting how Asuka prides herself on being so connected with her Ava, but also only to a point. Whereas Shinji surpasses her, that's when it all breaks down, and it takes realizing that her mother is in the unit at all for her to get back in and like be like as the most at her peak performance essentially in I think the greatest action sequence in the whole series. The idea that Shinji's mother is fully conscious and fully aware in this machinery, whereas part of Asuka's mother is in this machine, and you see what part of a woman is when Asuka's mom comes out. That it's like half of her has been ripped out, and the half that remains is like no grasp on reality, and it's heartbreaking to learn about.
Well, Unit 2 is also has like a much more animalistic characteristics as well.
Exactly. Yeah, more animalistic, multiple eyes. Yeah.
Can I share a headcanon that has absolutely no support, but that I really love? It's like my little pet headcanon.
Do tell. Do tell.
Hold on. I need a visual.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to send you a visual for this one.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean to share anything, or?
Yeah, you're probably going to want to share this one.
All right, send it in chat. I'll grab it and bring it over.
I will. Where is it? Here we go.
Yeah. As we're going to set up, chat is mentioning how like it's almost like Asuka regresses when she realizes her mother's in AV Unit 1 and AV Unit 2 to an extent. How she's talking about Mama and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that too.
Yeah, which makes sense. And honestly, it's probably better for her to be more like that than like emotionally, like horribly depressed.
Okay, I've sent an image.
Yes, image is up on screen.
So, do you know who this is?
That is from the PS2 game. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. That's not Fuyutsuki. That's what is it, Fuyutsuki? Is it younger?
This is Misato's father.
Oh, this is Dr. Katsuragi.
I want you to zoom in on his face, and I will share my little pet headcanon.
Right,
if you can, you should be able to. Okay. My headcanon. It doesn't really work because of the games, but my headcanon is that the person that interacted with Adam that ended up making Kaworu is Misato's father, because Misato's father did die on that expedition. And like they kind of have similar looks if you look at their eye shapes and stuff. And it would explain why Misato does not like Kaworu at all. Like he gives her the creeps and she does not like him.
Not to mention the fact that Kaworu was born on Second Impact.
The same day that Captain Katsuragi dies, or Dr. Katsuragi dies.
That's an interesting theory. I'm not gonna lie. There's no support for it whatsoever.
It's not theory. It's more of a headcanon than anything, and I just think it's fun, and it like adds an interesting layer between that kind of animosity that Misato feels towards Kaworu. I don't think when this is taken, like, I think this is like a flashback. I could be wrong. Don't think Dr. Katsuragi is alive in the present day in the video games either, but like it's very compelling to me because like if it's not him, then it's just some random guy, and like that's not as exciting. There's no symmetry, you know?
So chat is bringing up an alternate version of that theory, headcanon, that much like how Rei is a partial clone of Yui, perhaps Kaworu is a clone of Professor Katsuragi, which is equally same concept, just applied slightly differently. Both are interesting.
Yeah. However it's applied, I like the idea that Dr. Katsuragi was the human donor to Kaworu's body.
Exactly, which I think is really cool. I like that. That's a good idea. I think it's a really cool headcanon. I like that.
I didn't know that this was like a popular fan theory. I was just like, you know what?
Well, I mean, it's Evangelion. There's so many headcanons. And by the way, I do want to bring this up too, because I feel like it should come up at some point. The fandom for Evangelion has had so many interpretations of Kaworu. It's ridiculous. Remember there was one fan fiction I read? It was a fairly popular fan fiction. It had a whole AMV based on it too. That I thought was really kind of cool when I was like in high school, where it was basically like a Shinji Asuka fic, but and this is where you're going to get into some things. I'm going to mention something that is a little triggering, I think, for a lot of people, but I think it's an interesting discussion in terms of
We're
how
talking we're talking
what.
we're talking about Ava. Gloves are off. Like, if you guys are triggered by things, you should probably not be here.
Yeah, so homophobia in the anime fandom has always been present, but
Hmm.
this fan fiction, I think, embodied all the homophobia I could think of in one nutshell. Um, the first thing was they turned Kaoru into a girl because
Oh my
the author
god.
was just so uncomfortable with Shinji being even possibly remotely interested in a guy that she had to make it look and not only a girl but basically like Asuka's hair, Asuka's appearance, and but with
Yeah,
Karu's name and like role basically like a white-haired Asuka.
I hate that.
Which I know. I knew you were gonna hate it before you even said a word of it.
Now you continue, but after
Mhm.
you're done, I do want to talk about why I think it's important that Kaoru is male. But continue.
Oh, I can think of a few reasons too, but the gist of it was basically a lot of other fan reactions demonized Kaoru, making him be like kind of like a trick again, more like a Griffith, more like Rio from Devilman,
Hmm.
where his intention is to harm Shinji. And in fact, there was a very popular fan theory for a while among Ava fans that I'm going away from Professor Katsuragi there, that Kaoru was manipulating Shinji just to hurt him. That he orchestrated his whole death and everything just to particularly hurt Shinji. Which is I don't buy into whatsoever, in case my smirk isn't like indication of that.
I
But
think that you have to
sorry.
be watching Evangelion episode 26 with your eyes closed to get that interpretation.
Well, Krim, you and I have been online long enough to know that some people probably have done that,
Yeah.
based purely on their interpretation of everything. Chat saying Kaoru only works as a girl if Shinji is also a girl.
Right. All right. Now, okay.
Here we go.
Here is why I think it's important that Kaoru is a male. And I'm not even like, let's pretend that I'm not gay, I'm queer, and that like homophobia does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in a world where these things don't exist, it's still important that Kaoru is male. And that's because, when I was talking about this a bit in my server earlier, Shinji has so much trauma at this point surrounding women and the female body. He finds it almost impossible to get close to women. And I would say that it's to the point that the female body is kind of like freaking him out a little bit, especially with regards to Ava's being feminine bodies. And I think one of the reasons that Shinji doesn't pull away from Kaoru's advances is because he's male, because he doesn't have that baggage with men that he does with women. And like he can bond with him in a way that it's like it is one of the reasons is it works is that it's because it's vague and it's like, is this romance, is this friendship? Like, I don't really have to think about it. This person just really loves me for me, and I can just open up and I don't have to think about all the stinky feelings that I have associated with women. So I don't think it would work if Kaoru was a woman. I just don't think it would.
Agreed. I agree with that entirely, and even going over beyond gender,
Mhm.
I think the closer Kaoru is to Shinji, the more he's able to relate with him on a different level. Because Shinji's relationship with guys in general is very different from his relationship with girls.
Mhm.
He seems more comfortable with other guys
Yep.
throughout the whole series because with Toji it takes and Kensuke, it takes a little bit of time for them to get on the level with each other, but there isn't that same fear I think he has with communicating with them as with girls. And again, he's a boy going through puberty.
Yeah, it's understandable. There's also that scene, and it's kind of like a skipped over scene that we don't really think about very much. But like, Shinji's getting fucking sick and tired of sharing his room with Asuka, so he runs away for a night, and he runs into Kensuke in the countryside, and they sleep in a tent together.
Oh,
And he's
actually, you're mixing a few
probably
things. I think you're mixing a few things up. That's before Asuka shows up.
Is it before Asuka shows up?
Yeah, that's when he runs away. So that scene happened in
Oh, yeah,
episode
no, you're
4.
right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Sorry,
It's all
but
good.
like
Fake
I think he's being
fan Crim. Oh my
uncomfortable.
god.
Oh God, I should
Fucking
be executed.
tourist, man. I'm so sorry. As you were.
No, I just watch it so many times that like I put like it's cyclical to me at this point.
And have you read
So
the
I'm
manga
sorry.
too? I forget.
I've read some of the manga. The manga hurts my feelings though.
We should get into that too in a bit, but first let's finish this thought.
um, yeah, even if he hadn't interacted with Asuka before, we see how comfortable he is sleeping like basically with Kensuke on top of him. He's not bothered, he doesn't care. You look at his physical reactions with Kaoru, and like people kind of like act like Kaoru is preying on Shinji or he's being even, but like even in that first moment before the bath sequence where Kaoru comes out and he's like, "Oh, Shinji, you waited for me?" And Shinji's like, well, you know, not real. I didn't do it on purpose." Like he takes his headphones
It's not
out.
that I like you or anything.
Not like I like you or anything. And then they go and they have a bath together, and like they are sitting right next to each other. And like, yes, bathing together is seen as like a pretty normal practice in Japan, but like they're really close. And then they hold hands, and like Shinji like flinches, but he doesn't pull away. They sit next to each other, holding hands in the bath until the lights turn off. Just saying. And Howard's like, "Oh," so like I think Shinji's like, "Oh, like it's time to go to bed," and he's like, "Oh, are you coming to bed with me?" And Shinji's like, "Whoa!" But again, Shinji follows Kaoru back to his room. You know, like he's
despite
not.
the awkwardness, he still does it.
He still does it. He like Kaoru's not pushing himself on Shinji, and I hate that interpretation because like yes, Kaoru does make advances, but Shinji does too. Like, and he opens himself up for Kaoru to make those advances. And like,
oh, sorry, cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And there's that moment where Kaoru's like, "Hey, do you want to talk about anything?" And then Shinji just opens up about everything. And why did I do that? And Kaoru's like, I like you.
Yeah.
Like it's very cute, and it's like, I don't know. It's so weird to me when people act like Kaoru is being pushy at all. I've never read it as that. He's more pushy in Rebuilds than he is in Neon Genesis.
By a lot. And I think that's another problem I have with Rebuild. I mean, I like how they spend more time exploring that relationship in Rebuild. I really do. I like how Rebuild does flesh out Kaoru and Shinji's relationship just in terms of the time spent showing it. Because we're actually not even, really. There's not actually... You know, now that I think about it, if you took the amount of time they spent together, it's really not like they spend more time fleshing out the relationship. Like a little, but like if you calculate how much time passes, you really don't see all that much more time.
And a lot of their relationship is spent as pilots, as Kaoru being, yeah, I will give up. You know, like I'll put the collar on so that if somebody dies, it's me. Like, and like Shinji's like, "I'm so impressed by your sacrifice." Like, they don't actually really get to be kids like together like they do in Neon Genesis.
Agreed. It's more framed in the, like everything in Rebuild, it's framed in the plot as the plot demands the events have to unravel. Whereas what I love with the series is the characters are allowed to just exist in a space. Yeah. And you see the time pass, and you see them just chatting or doing nothing of importance. Like, one of my favorite scenes to me, God, we're never going to get to the other stuff, are we?
We will.
But, like, you know, one of my favorite scenes, and it's a very minor scene, and I see chat they're asking what my favorite VA for Kaoru is. I'm going to say Greg Ayres as well, from the director's cut. For the dub, anyway. I think that's the best version, Greg Ayres. Anyway, so it's a scene in episode 15 or so, I think it is, and it's when Misato and Kaji, they're coming back from the wedding, and they, you know, the whole emotional rant scene, and like, you know, they have a whole big moment, and Kaji and Misato kiss, and it's like this big dramatic moment. They have the piano music playing in the background, And then they cut to Asuka and like Shinji just at like just sitting around the apartment and being like, "Hey, you want to kiss?" And they just like pressure each
Oh,
other into kissing each other. Basically, it becomes almost like a competition. And it's such a nice little scene at first, but there's layers to it you come back to later. With the mind rape scene, essentially, is the way you're putting it, where you recontextualize that scene through Asuka's like own insecurities, and it forces you to reevaluate the scene. You think at first, oh, it was a little goofy, funny scene, and you reevaluate it when you see it purely from one character's very private perspective of pain, and it's only shown for like a few seconds.
yep.
Like you don't see much of it. Like it's a blink and you miss it kind of moment, and it recontextualizes what was at first a gag scene earlier on. And that's one thing I love about Eva. Scenes that seem minor at first are actually deeply informing about the character's arc, their beliefs, their fears, their pains, their needs. Anyway, I feel like if I don't move us forward, we're both going to get caught up talking about Eva because it's such a good series. But I think it's time to talk about Kaworu in the manga.
Oh, Carl.
Yeah. Yep. Kaworu
He's
is the number one kitten caretaker in all of Eva.
Yeah, so the fandom, especially like as far as I know, like the LGBT fandom of Eva tend to call those versions of Kaoru and Shinji Carl and Sean because they're so different from every other iteration, like even more so than the Rebuild series. They're so wow.
Very much so. And the wild thing, on one hand, you know how I compare it a lot? Evangelion, the manga, and I like the manga a decent amount, but I like it more than Rebuild personally. But
Yeah.
it's what Evangelion would have been if a talented person made it just a mecha series.
Yeah.
Like it's not as messy as the original anime, and because it's not as messy and it's more paced the way it should and written the way it quote unquote should, it's less impactful. You know, like all the weirdness of the anime makes it more effective at telling a character driven narrative, and this is more of a plot driven narrative that still is pretty effective. It's just loses something. I think.
And Kaoru is more human in this, but he has more in common with characters like Griffith and Ryo than he does with himself in anything else in Eva. And like I think he really, it's such a shame because it's like it's great to see his insecurities. Like there's this one panel where he's like he just wants Shinji to tell him that he loves him, and like it's such a vulnerable, painful panel, and like it's revealed later on that Shinji does love him, but he only admits to it after Kaoru's already dead.
Exactly.
It's such a shame that because like it is a homophobia thing. Like Shinji says him as Kaoru is begging Shinji to say that he loves him. Shinji says that like it's disgusting for men to like other men, and yet Kaoru still dies for Shinji.
Exactly.
Despite Shinji hurting him like that, and despite like Kaoru being kind of a little asshole. And there's one scene where the manga is one of the ones where they kiss, but it's like kind of Kaoru, like Shinji has a panic attack while he's sleeping, and Kaoru tries to give him mouth to mouth to get him to breathe again, and Shinji wakes up and is aware of it, and then kind of lets it happen for a little bit and then pushes him off.
Yeah. Which, yeah, right here. I have the panel right here. Actually, let me show you. No, that's not it. That's not the right panel.
What are you looking at?
Something else came up instead. I don't think I can put on YouTube, but I can show this.
That's like, yeah, that's like right after the kiss, I think.
Yeah, like right after. No, and again, it's this I feel is more like it's framed as more uncomfortable. It's framed as more like disconcerting. Almost, I would say the way Shinji is right here is so unlike how he is in the anime, where he's nervous but also open. This, from his
Yeah.
posture to everything, like, yeah, he's a little flustered, but he's also much more like he's not okay with this. Like, you can tell from the shoulders, from the way he looks. Yeah, he's bashful, but he's also like he wants to get out of there.
Yeah,
Whereas,
he
you
has
know,
more of that reaction that he typically does with women to Kaoru in this than like the way that he reacts to Kaoru coming onto him is the same way he reacts to Asuka coming onto him in the anime in
mm-hmm.
the original,
Yeah, which
which
you
kind
can which you can read as still very very queer, and is, and let's be honest, just because you're bisexual does not mean you want to have sex with every single man, or
well,
attracted to every single man. That's just not how it is.
Kaoru
So
also comes on really strong in the manga,
very,
and like I don't think he has the same. He doesn't have compassion at first. Like he doesn't really understand humans. He's very curious about Shinji and he wants Shinji, but he doesn't really. He doesn't understand him. It's like another like trigger warning. Like the first thing that Kaoru does in Shinji's present is that there's this stray cat and Shinji kind of bonds with it a little bit and Kaoru kills it.
yeah,
And Kaoru considers that a kindness to Shinji and the cat because Shinji can't afford to feed the cat. He's too busy, you know, being a child, being a student and fighting Ava. And the cat is like skinny and like doesn't have a mother. It's going to die. So Kaoru thinks like, well, if I kill it now, then Shinji doesn't have to be wounded later and the cat won't suffer a miserable life.
mm-hmm.
And that's just being very pragmatic about that. He thinks he's being kind, and Shinji's horrified. And it really sets up Kaoru's value of himself, I think. And
Yeah, and it's very his thing also. I think is a good way of putting it. The anime Kaoru, while he is disconnected from social interactions, it's in a way that's still very human.
mm-hmm.
He's driven by empathy, whereas
Yes.
manga Kaoru is driven by logic, almost like a Klingon, not Klingon, like a Vulcan almost,
Yep.
taken to an extreme. I've kind of avoided bringing this up until this point, but there are people who read Kaoru and Rei through an autistic lens.
Oh yeah, no, I
Through a neuro-
definitely.
Yeah, you can see that, right? But like, I think anime Kaoru is a more positive portrayal of that. Where and so is, I think manga Rei is way more emotionally driven than anime Rei, but
Mm-hmm.
that's also because clearly the manga likes that's
Likes
the
what-
character's name, Yoshiyuki. I'm trying to blank his full name, but he clearly likes Rei, and you can tell. Whereas the anime had like a bit of a restraint with portraying Rei as being too emotive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this,
Yeah.
it's like pure logic and almost like, again, we mentioned before that some people read Kaoru as predatory in the anime. This is more predatory in some
yeah,
ways.
definitely.
And I do want to point out one small little tidbit that, unlike the anime, Asuka and Kaoru interact.
Oh yeah, and also like
Yeah.
Asuka's homophobic as hell, and that's
Mhm.
just something that's carried across like in everything, which I think it's really funny.
Yeah. Yoshiyuki
Funny.
Sadamoto, that was the act. That was his name. Sorry, as you were.
I'm just saying that it's really funny. It's really funny that one of Asuka's most consistent characterization is that she's extremely homophobic and hates Kaoru.
Which is so funny.
It's so in character too, like with the original anime version. She just doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they never meet in the anime because that she would fucking hate crime, Kaoru.
Yeah, basically. Oh, it's tragic, but it's so. And again, you may think we're joking about this, but we'll get to Shinji Ikari and Raising Project in a second. That is the Asuka at her most homophobic. She's such a disaster. And but
love her
now,
now.
but here she's being a little biphobic. To be fair, because she's thinking Kaoru's going to the girls' bathroom just to perv on her.
Yeah, and that's another thing is that like sometimes people it was like, oh, maybe he's bisexual. It's like I think it's there's one iteration where Shinji dreams up a world like in Instrumentality where Kaoru and Asuka are dating.
Mm.
I don't.
Mm.
And I think that's Shinji trying to pair up the spares because I think he's dating Rei in that imaginary world.
Mm.
I think he just doesn't want the two of them to be alone. And again, because Asuka and Shinji are so similar, I think that if he was straight or bisexual, I think that he definitely would be interested in Asuka for the same reason he's interested in Shinji, but he never shows like any interest in her.
Exactly.
So I think that's a pretty good indication that he's gay.
Yeah,
That's my interpretation anyway.
I think he doesn't. I don't know. I think the discussion before. I don't think he understands what gender really, how it defines people. Because I think he has like at times a great grasp of culture, but not always a great grasp of social or societal norms. So I feel like
he probably wouldn't call himself gay, but can I bring up something? No, you go ahead.
No, go for it.
Mine is a whole other tangent. In one of the video games, it's revealed that Kaworu's dream is to become a makeup artist.
Is it the
I'm not
PlayStation
kidding.
2 one?
Yep.
Yeah, of course it is. Okay.
Should we look at that?
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
Do you know where to find it? Because I can find it if you can't.
I may take a little bit of time for you to figure this out.
I can you play audio from you? Because I can find it quite because I've looked at it many times because I'm a little freak.
Okay, let's bring up the freakiness. Let's do it. We got this.
Yep.
Kaworu is just after. You brought in?
I found it very like first result.
Oh, good. Krim, this is telling me a lot about your search history, more than I needed to at the time. Cool. Oh yeah. This is definitely. All right, let's bring this up.
Yeah. Well, this is canon, by the way. This is an actual game that produced. Yeah.
I'm gonna load this a little bit just so we can try avoiding copyright strikes.
今度学校で進路相談があるだろ。あるね。そういえばそんなのが。
How long is this one?
This is 4.5 minutes. Skip ahead a little bit. Got your future all worked out. Yeah, Shinji wouldn't have a goal.
He's just admitted to him that he wants to be a makeup artist.
You're gonna cut back a little bit. There you go.
There we
Wish to
go.
be a makeup artist. There we go. And where's the clip where he? Let's skip ahead right here. Changing scene here. You're the first person to try to put it on. Oh.
Oh, and he just gets right into it, and some of the words that he uses, like, oh my god.
Liquid foundation. He knows it all already.
He knows what he's doing.
He's like, wait, hang on a second. What did you just say there? Things look beautiful, huh?
Oh god, I'm like embarrassed to be watching this with somebody else.
It's not the worst clip from this game.
No, it's not.
There's no heterosexual explanation for this visual.
No, there isn't.
Now, I've seen in comments you're asking, yes, this is the same PS2 game with the classified information data files, which explains a lot of the lore of Ava. I find some of that interesting. Some of it is unnecessary, I feel like. But because I feel like some of the lore isn't... I've always felt with Ava, the lore isn't the part you should be paying attention to. It's the ideas.
I love the lore, though. It's so fun.
It's so fun, but I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, I don't need it, but I'm happy it's here. You know what I mean? Now, personally, I love the part of this game where the Fuyutsuki scene, which
no. I don't want to look at that again. No.
For those unaware, there's a scene in the PS2 game, which Neon Genesis Evangelion 2, it's called, where Fuyutsuki takes Shinji and dresses him up as Yui.
And then dresses him up as Yui as a maid.
As a maid, yeah, as a maid as well. Because just once wasn't enough.
He was in love with Yui, and Shinji looks a lot like Yui.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said that, hold on, in the chat said, actually, it would have been funny if he meant a monster movie makeup artist. It plays out the shame, but Shinji ends up with a Hollywood tear monster face. I mean, that would be funny, but, like, I think that, like, this is one of those things where it's just very much stating that, like, or is attracted to Shinji. It's not just like a, you know, it's not just like, you're interesting. I see you as an avatar for mankind. Like, it's more like stated in all the series outside of the original anime series. And if you're a real fan,
mm-hmm.
and
real fans,
if you do consume that stuff, you realize like, oh yeah, no, this is a thing.
Exactly.
It's not the biggest thing, mind you, but
it is something.
It is like an actual like aspect of it, and it's a pretty, it's like it happens in every series that like Kaworu and Shinji have a connection like this. But there's like a lot of things like that. It's just like this one, like people like to deny isn't real for some reason.
It's funny, I would say, like Shinji and Kaworu's connection is so integral to every version of Eva, but not always his relationship with Rei or Asuka, which I think is interesting. Like some of the video games where you see Rei and Asuka, they're not always presented as love interests. In fact, I think the first Girlfriend of Steel game, there was like that one OC who I forget her name. It's weird. Like she's not like Asuka and Rei become like side characters in this one other with this romance between Shinji and an OC. Like they still play a role in his life, but they're not the same prominence in that one alternate version. Actually, one thing I want to ask you, Krim, because I feel like you have a different relationship with this fan theory than I would. What do you feel about the fan theory that, and based purely on Sadamoto's art, that Shinji is potentially trans or can be read as trans? I feel like you're better equipped to answer that question than I am.
I thank you. Well, I'm somewhat of a transgender myself.
I'm something of a. Sorry, I couldn't.
No. I don't mind the headcanon. Of trans femme Shinji. I don't mind it, but I don't agree with it. I think that Shinji's self-actualization, he self-actualizes too much at the end of the series and doesn't acknowledge a disconnection from his gender. You know what I mean? Like if you self-actualize like that and you don't realize you're trans, like it kind of downplays his self-actualization in the canon series. Like, because if he was trans, I think he would have realized that already when he self-actualizes at the end of the series. That's one thing. I do like, there are two trans headcanons that I like a little bit more. I like trans masculine Shinji a little bit more, but I tend to prefer Shinji to be cis male with some hangups on gender, but ultimately like is cisgender. My favorite trans headcanon is trans girl Asuka.
Interesting.
That's my favorite trans headcanon, if I'm honest. I think that like she's put into this traditionally masculine role, and she's pushed a little bit to, because remember, she's not only wanting to be seen as an adult, she's wanting to be seen as an adult and a woman, and like somebody that is seen as like beautiful and desirable, and I think that resonates with a lot of. I have a friend. I don't talk to her much anymore. We just kind of fell off. You know how friendships on the internet go.
Yeah.
But she gave me this reading of Asuka, and I'm like, as soon as she said, I think Asuka is a trans girl, I was like, I'm right there. And she like went on this whole thing about it, and I was like, yep, I see it. where a lot of those struggles that she goes through is very similar to what a lot of trans girls go through, I think, where she's trying to like balance this life that she's been handed to with like, I want to be seen as a woman, but I want to be taken seriously. So yeah. I think she feels more trans femme to me than Shinji does. I think I see Shinji more as cis, but it's it's fine if you headcanon it. I just don't agree with it.
That's an interesting headcanon. I would never have thought of that with Asuka. That's interesting. I don't know if I agree with it, but it's an interesting headcanon. I've never even considered that one. Some people also saying that trans femme Shinji would make Shinji look a lot like Maya Ibuki, who is canonically queer.
The reason that a lot of people he comes across as very feminine is that he was originally going to be a woman. Like he was originally a girl. So I think that there's like a lot of things that were designed and thought of early on. And he was put in the role of a girl, and then it was kind of like dialed back a little bit because like actually that would make all of the characters girls, and I already did that. So
well, again, I'm going to bring this up right here. Nadia from Nadia in the Blue Water, which was Hideki Anno's series before Evangelion, and the same character designer, Yoshiyuki Tamano, the design for Shinji and Nadia is very similar if you ignore the skin tone and the hairstyle. And, otherwise it's very similar in terms of the way they're built, the way they look, the way their heads are shaped. Like side by side, here's Nadia, here's Shinji. Same face shape, same body shape, same expression, same eyes, same general look, except basically like the hairstyle is slightly changed and there's no lashes. So those are some elements I think that are very interesting. And of course the big difference between that Nadia is a person of color or at least tan, at least.
So is Shinji, but
oh yeah, exactly. Shinji's Japanese, which is but darker skinned, I should say.
Yeah. And like I guess at the end of it, I just feel like because of his connections with the boys in his life and the way he bonds with Kaoru, I just feel like there's too much evidence in the series going against him feeling like he never shows a disconnect with masculinity. He sometimes struggles to fulfill a masculine role because he's a teenage boy, and like, let's be honest, like the expectations of masculinity are fucking poisonous to everyone.
Oh God, yeah, 100%.
So like, just because he struggles with meeting those expectations doesn't mean he's trans. He doesn't feel any dysphoria, and like we see too much into Shinji's mind and his psyche, and like I just don't see it. He has too much of an aversion to femininity, I think, to be trans.
That's fair.
And like that's why, yeah, and like that's why I think trans masculine Shinji works a little bit better. But
because it would tie him with dysphoria.
Yeah. I mean, like again, that isn't really my headcanon either, but it makes more sense to me than trans feminine Shinji. But I'm a little I don't really like trans headcanons that go against the shown gender of like the character and like the expression of the character as much, unless there is like a specific thing of like Naoto from Persona or even like Sheik from The Legend of Zelda, where they do live as that gender, or like Bridget from Guilty Gear, where they are shown as living as that gender, but they might not. And like in Strive, Bridget is trans, but like in the canon, it's like, oh no, they are actually a boy, but they just live as a girl, or they are actually a girl, but they just live as a boy. Like that one, I have a little bit more leeway, but I much prefer like characters, like trans headcanons of characters where their identified gender is the same gender they are in the canon series, rather than flipping it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, this character, like I know that the Danny Phantom, like, there's a very common headcanon that he's a trans man. Like, that's fine. And like that's why I like trans femme Asuka more than I like trans femme Shinji, because Asuka is a girl, so like it makes more. I don't know. That's just the way I feel though.
Oh yeah.
I feel like some trans headcanons are just an excuse to gender bend without like and being able to because some gender bends are a little stinky, and I feel like some people use it as like a way to gender bend without but having a little bit of a barrier if people criticize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you it's like you can't make fun of my headcanon. It's because of this. I know what you're saying. Yeah, and like that's interesting too of perspective. Because I would never have thought of it in that way, which is cool. Again, obviously I'm not trans, so I don't have that same perspective, which is why it's so good to just ask questions sometimes. And it's one of the great things with this whole discussion, just examining this text through different lenses. I think it's really, but I agree with you entirely.
And if you like, audience, if you like trans femme Shinji, I don't fucking care. They don't exist. The characters aren't real. You can imagine whatever you want to in their head. It's not going to hurt me. I just not something I personally enjoy. So I just don't watch or engage with things I don't like. I mean,
exactly.
It's really easy to do that.
So now let's talk about homophobic Asuka.
Okay, yeah, here we go.
The Shinji Ikari Raising Project introduces Kaworu.
No.
In the second volume, he is there from the beginning, essentially, and he is presented as the gay character who's going to lure Shinji away from the straight and narrow heterosexual. So
the gay agenda
at full work. So Asuka and Rei, in a moment of unity, realize that neither of them have any chance to compete against Kaworu. So they decide to join forces to conversion camp Shinji into not being bisexual or gay. Because it's the only way they can compete with Kaworu.
They work together. I don't think they manage it, do they?
I think Shinji ends up with Asuka, but Kaworu's like a third option for the entire series. Yeah. Shinji Ikari Raising Project's basically just fan fiction. Like, it's just fan fiction.
Very silly.
It's unabashedly goofy and fan servicey and silly, but just this panel alone, I have convinced so many people to read it just because of this panel.
Another one that I want to read is Campus Apocalypse.
Yes, Campus Apocalypse is interesting too, especially because Kaworu is
adult,
as
well. But Kaworu is an old childhood friend of Shinji, I believe.
Yeah, again reminiscent of Devilman again with
Ryo and Akira.
There's a bad image. Let me get a big one. There we go. Now that's
Kaworu is treated as an option the whole time.
And he's actually introduced, I think, before Rei and Asuka, if I recall correctly.
I think so. But I want to get my hands on the physical copy, and they're a little expensive. But it's when I finish buying, I need to buy the latest volumes of Chainsaw Man. I have 2 or 3 volumes to catch up on, and then I'm gonna buy Campus Apocalypse and read that. But it's a little expensive.
A little bit. Chat's asking. So Naruto 85 Racing Shuriken, great username. By the way, it's great. Isn't the Shinji Ikari Raising Project the same alternate reality from episode 26 during the original TV ending?
Really?
Kind of.
But it's the same idea.
Yeah. It's same concept, but not quite the same. There are some differences.
Another influence that Devilman had on Evangelion is the cyclical nature of the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So in Devilman, spoiler alert, Akira dies.
Yeah.
At the end, and
everyone dies.
Violent. Everyone dies except for Ryo, who is at that point reawakened as Satan. And he doesn't realize that he was in love with Akira until he's already dead in his arms. And it's he's the one who restarts. It's like a kind of imply that he makes like a wish for everything to start over again. And it cycles just like Evangelion does. Like every time you see like a different series of Evangelion, they're all canon because it's a cycle. It's actually theorized that the manga is the first cycle because Kaworu is said to be aware of the cycle. I think that makes it clear in I have feelings about the rebuild, but it's more explicit in the rebuild that he's aware of the cyclical nature.
Yeah.
And it's said that the reason that he's such a stinky little bastard in the manga is because it's his first time being alive, basically. Like he doesn't. But after the reason that he's so empathetic later is because he absorbs, like he kind of like unites with Rei for a moment and kind of like learns kindness and compassion, and he gets really messed up about it. And that carries on into other iterations of Kaworu.
Yeah. On that same note, it's a fan work, what I'm going to talk about right now, but I think this fan work really heavily, I think, really inspired a lot of people to jump in on the cycle theory as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Evangelion Retake,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very, I would argue, a really solid doujin. I prefer the all ages version because I don't feel comfortable looking at like the hentai version all that much. I just don't like it. When you get this attached to the character's Neva, you get uncomfortable when people like eroticize them. It just gets weird.
Yeah, especially with like Asuka, because she's out of all of the characters, she feels the most like a 14-year-old to me.
Yeah.
So when she's sexualized, it makes me super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't like that personally, and it's not like I can't deal with fan service thing. You get this close to characters, it almost feels like you're walking in on like a member of your family.
I mean, like I don't
know.
feel like that. It's the fact that they're kids, and because
That too.
Asuka feels the most like a kid to me,
Yeah.
and she reminds me a lot of the kids that I work with in my big boy job. It's just hard for me to like see her like that because like it's kind of like why I have such a hard time with Karlak from Baldur's Gate 3. She's a great character. I do not see her in a romantic or sexual light because she is so much like my sister.
Yeah, you see, I don't have that problem with Karlak, so
yeah. No, I support other people, but like I can't do it. I can't see it. And like I like some stinky media, so like most of the time I'm okay, but if things start reminding me too much of real life, I'm just like, I can't do it. Sorry. Asuka's too much like way too many of the troubled 14-year-olds that I work with that it's like, sorry, I can't. Don't show me that.
I hear you. I completely agree with you on that one. I said family just because I like these characters a lot, but you're right. With Asuka especially, she is so perfect. Myeonyeon, thank you for the super chat. I just looked at the chat just now. I got distracted myself. Myeonyeon, thank you for the super chat again. Cyclical nature in anime is so interestingly inherently Buddhist. These themes show up in metaphorically Gundam as well, and also more literally in Neon Genesis Evangelion's spiritual predecessor, Ideon. Space Runaway Ideon. Okay.
I haven't seen that one. Sorry.
Oh, I have, and it's Tomino really earns his stripes in that one as the guy who kills every single character in his shows. Space. I won't go into too much detail because it's not relevant to discussing Kaworu and Asuka and Shinji, but Space Runaway Ideon really does cement the all the tropes that Evangelion lifted from this and Childhoods and from Arthur C. Clarke. I think are the biggest influences on the plot of Evangelion. Not so much the characters, but the plot. Cyclical natures, cycles continuing again. Gundam happens all the time. I agree. Now, what's interesting with Evangelion Retake from that lens, and again, fan work, not official, but it is so interesting in the discussion about the cycle of Eva stories. the idea of it is that Shinji, it follows the anime timeline to a point, and Shinji is sent back to, I think, just after he, the midpoint of the series, and he's given the chance to redo everything. Because he sees, okay, I know what mistakes I've made. I'm going to try doing it right this time so nothing bad ever happens to anyone. And one of the plot points is he gets Asuka pregnant, which is a plot point in the story. And we see, honestly, a pretty realistic series of events from that point on. Not super realistic, because because Shinji, it turns out, is not the only one sent back in time. There's also Asuka's past self is sent back in time, and she's still pissed off at Shinji. And they play off Kaworu, and that is very, again, predatory, very not a loving person, but like as not even as an angel, bizarrely enough. He's just kind of there.
Sorry, I almost like threw my microphone off my desk.
Yeah, I mean, he takes interesting, but in the discussion of the cycle of continuities, it engages with that idea fully before that became like a mainstream idea in Eva media.
Yeah,
because later works would take a similar approach. I don't want to say they drew from Retake. I forget what the timeline of events were when this was first introduced in official media, but
I mean, like, I feel like Devilman. I feel like that came from Devilman more than it would have come from a fan work.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you look at Violence Jack, for example. That was a manga Go Nagai made after Devilman. A very successful manga with a very disturbing set of OVAs, which I personally really dig. What it says about me. And in the manga, at the end of the manga, it basically Violence Jack is Mad Max before Mad Max. It's Fist of the North Star before Fist of the North Star. It's the same post-apocalyptic wasteland, roaming survivors, and the main hero is this titanic, almost like a folk hero who goes from place to place and like does stuff. Except he's not really a hero. He's just punches the biggest guy in the room and leaves. And like, but it's played for horror, not so much for action beats, because he's ignoring genuine atrocities that happen around him, and you see those atrocities happen, but he just wants to confront whoever he has to confront, and then he moves on like a wandering storm. He's kind of indifferent to the suffering of people in a way that's actually very upsetting, because he'll just he'll help some people out, but he's not really there to save the world. He's there just to move from place to place. And it turns out it's a reincarnated version of Akira from Devilman.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It turns out in the last volume you find out he's Akira, and he's forgotten everything. He has no memory of the past. This is just the base instinct taken physical form, and I forget who Ryo is. I think he's like, there's like, if you've ever seen Mad Max, the Road Warrior, there's the Lord Humongous character. There's a guy who's like Lord Humongous in Violence Jack, like a big buff warlord who like has a bunch of bondage henchmen, and like he has a chariot that's like, I think people whose like legs have been like amputated. Like it's really disturbing. Like it's a lot of disturbing dark stuff. But I think what's if I remember correctly, I think Akira's girlfriend is one of the people who's like in his entourage, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a very disturbing story. It's not translated though, so you can't read it, unfortunately.
I mean, like, there's probably come on, like, I'm
You have to
I'm of
dig
an
for
age
it.
where I'm of an age where most of the manga that I read when I was a teenager was like fan translated, and we love fan translated manga in this house.
You're gonna have to dig for it, unfortunately.
Oh.
It's hard to find.
Okay.
For whatever reason, this manga didn't get much of a following in America, and it was big in Japan, but it didn't. No, it took when I looked for it, which, mind you, was a few years ago, so it's very likely what I'm saying is not true anymore. But when I was looking for it, it was very hard to find translated material of it outside of the OVA, which you can find on like for free, I think, on like
on
Retro
the note
Crush.
on the note of like Devilman and inspirations and stuff from it and Eva, how familiar are you with Tatsuki Fujimoto and his most popular work at the moment, Chainsaw Man?
Decently, not terrifically. I haven't. I'm not up to date with with Chainsaw Man the manga.
I'm technically not up to. I just have like I'm reading the physical releases as they come out, and I'm like 2 books behind. Oh, but it's it's very clearly inspired by Devilman.
Oh yeah, a bit.
Yeah, just a little tiny bit. Oh my god, this man. Speaking of guys that like kill all their characters, what the fuck, man?
Horribly so, right?
Now, no spoilers, but like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, and again, it's interesting, right? Because
and
like,
it also
sorry,
it's also very nostalgic for like somebody that's a fan of 90s and 80s anime and manga.
it has that vibe to it, which I dig. Like, I feel a lot of modern anime, they have a very different feel to their work.
It's blobby.
A lot of moe blobs. Yeah, people point out Cutie Honey is part of the Devilman continuity as well. Like, I was revisiting Sailor Moon for a Reason video, and just going back to that, even then, a show that's aimed for a teenage audience, you know, which is the primary demographic for anime today, it felt colossally different. There were so many slower moments. There were so many moments of characters acting in ways that were unorthodox and goofy. And, you know, my biggest problem with a lot of modern anime is a lot of them fall back on tropes that older anime established. And that's not to say all of them do, but enough do that you have to really filter out. I used to watch half the anime came out every season. Now I watch like 1 or 2 because I know
Me too.
a lot of them are just gonna be the same thing I've seen already. So like, why watch it again and done worse? That's bizarrely why the plus-sized elf series looks interesting. Cause I'm like, I haven't seen that before.
I mean, I've
seen monster harems, but not like that kind of monster harem. Even though it's probably gonna be terrible. I haven't watched it yet, but
I dislike Sailor Moon Crystal a lot.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, I'm not as big on it either. And
I feel like the 90s anime had so much personality, and it was just drawn in a more appealing way, and it was just so good. And I know that like they added some things in there, like oh, God, what's his name? They added some gay characters, which I appreciate.
to the anime, to the 90s one.
Zoisite
And Kunzite, yeah, they're queer.
That was, oh my god, that hurt my little heart. That was I like that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that there wasn't any like gay characters in the original, but like I liked the Sailor Moon anime. Sorry.
And I think the thing also is because the Crystal, it's based in the
more
manga,
based on the
and the manga is very fast paced for Sailor Moon. You get, there's 12 volumes, but you get through 5 separate arcs, and each arc is like 2 or 3 volumes long. So it's rushing, but it works in the manga because you can stop, you can linger on a page, and there's usually a lot going on with each page.
Now,
Whereas in the anime, it feels like it's rushing and sprinting from scene to scene to scene.
yeah.
But the 90s anime,
correct
it
me.
lingers and everything. It's fantastic. You have so many episodes of the characters just hanging out. And I mentioned this before with the original Eva versus Rebuild. It's so plot focused in Crystal.
Mhm.
You can't just stop and like sit with the characters.
Yeah. I think moving from expecting people to like, oh, I like Sailor Moon, and Sailor Moon is going to be a part of my life for the next few years. I'm going to watch it on TV when it comes out every week. And going like, the new season of Sailor Moon Crystal is out. I'm going to binge it as quickly as possible. It's also like changed our relationship with anime. And because of that, I used to be more into anime when I was younger, But now I'm almost explicitly like always prefer the manga. Because that still has the same culture as it did back then of like a slow release cycle where people can just take their time, and it's just I found that with Chainsaw Man. Specifically with the character design and some of the little choices that they make. Um Unsurprisingly, my favorite Chainsaw Man character is Angel Devil.
Yeah, I have a feeling you're gonna say
And yeah,
that.
so predictable. And like the way like they massacred my boy. Like he has like you look at him, he's like these big fucking sad big ass eyes. And he's so expressive in the manga, and then they just make him into like this generic twink in the anime, and I'm like, what did you do to him? Like
No,
what did
I
you
hear
do
you.
to him?
I hear
Why
you.
would you do? And like because of also like the relation, like how long between the manga releases, Angel Devil became one of the most popular characters in the series, because of how long between releases it was. But like I have a feeling that like, oh, spoiler alert, cover your little ears if you haven't seen the first arc up like the first part of Chainsaw Man. Like I have a feeling that Angel Devil is probably going to die in the same release that he's introduced.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas us manga fans had a lot of time to kind of digest him and be a fan of him before we were like, oh, the fuck, you guys, why would you do that? Like he's the sixth most possible, or he was at the time of the poll, the sixth most popular character in the whole series.
And even
Which is
going
also
and even going off
sorry.
of it's all good. Even going off another shonen manga. So for example, My Hero Academia, which I know you love so much, your favorite manga. You told me before how much you love My Hero Academia. It's your favorite.
Yeah.
Even that release schedule, I remember like whole arcs that were like multiple volumes were condensed down to like 12 episodes.
Yeah, I hate that.
And it's like you had a lot of time to linger with the characters and to sit with this. And again, week to week to week, of course. I'm not saying that Chainsaw Man is as good as My Hero Academia. Obviously, My Hero Academia is the best manga ever made. I mean, Krim, you tell me all the time how much you love My Hero Academia. You have a shrine to it, and you're
Yeah, a shrine to the fans that I definitely don't practice voodoo on.
There you go.
In the dark. Yeah,
That's how much you care about
I
them.
I, I just
But
like
it's just condensed.
I know
the
that
point is.
I know it's a little bit topical, and I shouldn't be saying this right now, but like I feel like My Hero Academia has become the new Dragon Ball Z, and it's like everybody else, it's like that and JoJo, and it's like everybody else seems to like it, and I just don't care. And I wish
Valid.
people would stop drag me into it.
What
Um,
would Demon Slayer be then, if that's new DBZ? Because I feel like Demon Slayer is
it's
like
the new, Demon Slayer's the new Inuyasha, I think.
that. You would say Inuyasha and not FMA.
Maybe FMA. I
Yeah,
feel like, yeah, maybe.
I feel like they occupy the same. Because when people say like talk about the best anime currently, they usually fall back on. In terms of the last few years, I'd say if people talk about the best, like the peak anime, they'd probably say something like Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen,
One Punch
Frieren,
Man.
One Punch Man, Frieren, and Delicious in Dungeon is now getting that conversation, which I love
Oh.
because I
You know
really
what?
love that series.
Delicious in Dungeon is the new FMA.
Yeah, that actually may be because that's a great and
Wait,
case in point.
anime.
What's up?
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say case
Oh,
in point. The manga artist loves Dragon Age, so
yeah,
and
yeah.
Baldur's Gate. So I'm like, yeah, I can relate to
Uh,
that.
well, also like they are also occupying that same sort of niche of like this is the anime for non-anime fans. And like when I was a kid, that was Fullmetal Alchemist and Death Note.
And Bebop, I'd say.
Bebop, yes, as well, but that was like more mature.
Mm.
Whereas I think Delicious in Dungeon appeals to like a little bit of a younger audience, like older teens and young adults. Whereas I think Bebop is more for like young adults and like adults. You know?
Yeah, that's valid. I'd say Hellsing should have had that position too because it's great, but I don't know. I'm always vouching for Hellsing. I love that series. I love that manga. And again, the manga more than the anime, which is,
Mm-hmm.
but like, I find it so funny. Oh
Let's
my,
dial it back into Eva though, because we're
yeah,
really going off.
we were going off there. No, but like each
Uh-huh.
version of Kaoru is different in terms of My hair's doing the thing where once it gets sweaty, it goes all over the place.
Mhm.
Okay, chat's asking, I heard Lily Orchard recently made a dumpster fire of a video trashing Undelicious in Dungeon. Yes, but I'm not going to cover it because it's going to spoil you from the manga. Sai did a version of that where she cut out the spoiler bits. You should watch that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to run Lily's video and then spoil that manga for my audience because I care about you. I don't want to ruin that for you.
Also deleted the video.
Oh, she deleted it?
Yeah.
Like fully?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that makes sense.
She pruned a bunch of her videos, and all of them were ones that me or Sai covered.
Oh, I love that. I find it funny how, like, I find it so funny. Like, I'll get back to Ava right after this, but I just find it funny with Lily Orchard, like, how angry she's at you and Sai, but I've covered her too, and, like, I've never had a peep from her.
Well, if you think about it,
the radar, I guess.
It's not. Well, no, it's not. It's that you're a big, scary cisgender man, and
yeah, I'm so frightening with my Pokemon plushies, and
she sees us more as like has a lot of misogyny in her. Let's be real. A lot of people perceive me as feminine, even though I don't really see myself as that. I just have a high pitched voice and I'm a little fruity. But yeah,
if it's any consolation, I think you're a guy, so it all works out.
Well, you're right. Congratulations on being correct.
Thank you.
No, I think it's just me and Sai are seen as acceptable targets. And it's just so weird because like I have less than 700 subscribers, and when she started picking on me, well, she's not picking on me because she hasn't come after me directly, as far as I know. She's just kind of taken screenshots of my videos and posted them on her Discord and stuff, and she started doing that when I had under 500 subscribers. So
she's so insecure.
Very strange to do. Like, why are you feeling so hurt? Like,
I'm nobody. That tells me she perceives you as a threat, which I think you should take as a moment of pride about that.
I mean, I don't care to be threatening. That's not my goal, but okay.
But you're accomplishing it without trying. And in many ways, that is quite the accomplishment, too.
I mean, I think it's also that I explicitly have said that one of my goals in covering her is to, like, get people to stop listening to her because I think she has bad opinions that are really dangerous to people. And I think she's basically the condensed version of everything I hate about media analysis right now. But she's not one of the big, scary, right-wing grifters that will dox me. Like, she's shitty, and she has, like, kind of degendered me and Sai a few times, but, like, I feel like she's a much more approachable person to talk about because she's somebody in the community, like, in the LGBT community, and, like, sorry, I guess, like, that you're the one I'm talking about, that she's the one I'm talking about, but, like, it's kind of intimidating to sort of like the idea of talking about somebody that would like not hesitate to misgender me or call me slurs. Like, I would be fine with that. Like, I don't really care what people call me, but it gets a little bit scary thinking that, like, what if they manage to find me outside of the internet? That's kind of scary to me. Like, I have a job where, like, that could be put in danger if that happened to me. So yeah,
that's fair. And you know, the thing with me, because you know my history with media journalism, like I've already pissed off the right wing guys already, so I don't care anymore. Like, they've already done everything that they could do beyond like physically attacking me in any way. Like, all the usual stuff online they've done already. So it's like, okay, cool. You know, like it's like whatever. You know, what are you gonna do next? The only thing you can do next is. There's only one thing they could really do next, and if they do that, then there's really nothing you could do again except for doing it again, which is like, okay.
Yeah.
So
for me, no, sorry.
No, go for it. I cut you off there. Go for it.
Interrupted. No, I cut you off myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, with Lily, like I think I'm not getting into the allegations again, although she makes it very hard not to get into them with every video she makes. I feel like her big thing is she is ultimately self-destructive more than outwardly destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of the right-wing grifters, they are more outwardly destructive. They want to inflict harm on well, not all. Most want to make money. Most see this as theater. They see it as like pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So for them, it's a game to them, But most of them they want a quick target and they move to the next target just as quickly. Unless you happen to write a Star Wars show, I guess.
Or you become a bit of a lol cow.
Or a locale, that's true. Well, even then, that's different, though, because the locale becomes content. And a locale, and again, people have asked me if Lily's a locale. I'd say no, because...
No, she definitely is.
Well, I say no for this reason. A locale doesn't have a following.
Yeah, maybe.
Like you look at, what's that one mukbang guy who everyone makes fun of?
Nikado Avocado?
Yeah. He has two followings: people who make fun of him and people who are worried about him. But he doesn't have people following him because like they love him and like think that everything he says is like the gospel truth.
He used to. Before he started doing this shit, he used to have a following, but he just self-destructed. So
exactly. But like that's an example. With Lily, she still has people who genuinely hang on to every word she says and like believe it. Like that's why I think they're different.
Yeah.
But that's only anyway. Back to Ava. We'll talk about Lily. We'll talk about Lily much more on your Friday stream.
Yeah, let's get back to let's do a little tasty taste of Friday stream. But to get back to Ava, oh my God, where do we even begin?
We take alternate universes. Talking about the various versions of Kaworu.
Yeah.
Operation Asuka's homophobic conversion camp.
Yes.
I think we covered the big things anyway, which is good.
I think we can get into some of the littler idiosyncrasies and like what makes the relationship between him and Shinji so good. I think we start to get into the nitty gritty because I think we've really kind of painted the scene, so to speak.
I think so too. And I think the big thing that I think a lot of people are drawn to with Kaworu personally is the sense of... Oh, actually, here's one thing I can ask you. Do you remember if Shinji and Kaworu have any interactions in Super Robot Wars?
I did not. That's one thing
either.
that I didn't actually interact with that series, actually.
I used to love that back in like college when I got like a translated version of one of the games and I was like loving that game.
Let's do a little bit of research. Super Robot Wars.
Yeah, I don't know if they have any interaction because they were in a few games. The Ava kids.
They do. Yeah. They were drift compatible.
Oh my god. Oh my god, yeah. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, so it's basically they do the Oh yeah, so they're doing Here we go. Oh, this is the whole game. Let me just cut to I want to play a video. What are we talking about? I'm not playing video games.
I sent you a screen capture.
Ooh, let me bring it up. Let me bring that up real quick. Oh yeah. This right here.
They're drift compatible.
They are drift compatible. Just like in Rebuild 3. Yeah, no, it's wild though. Like it's that's a good screenshot actually, I'm not gonna lie. This is the only thing I can do. Stare lovingly in your eyes, yeah. And again, it's kind of like following the Rebuild pipeline, that whole sequence of events, which is cool.
Yeah, but except that Kaworu's head doesn't explode.
Yeah, that's true. That's a big difference.
Sometimes Kaworu does get to live, and like in Evangelion 2, there is an ending where, like, because you can choose multiple endings, you can romance. Well, you have different pathways, right? So you can like get different characters' endings, sort of like a romance thing. And Kaworu is one of the options, and he's one of the romantic options that you can like take his storyline in the Ava games. So yeah.
Actually, Krim, I'm going to give you the reins for 5 seconds. I have to run away and use the bathroom.
You have to run away
for a few seconds because I've used too.
I promise. I promise I'll be normal.
Krim, I trust you with chat. I trust you with chat
Okay.
for like 3 minutes. We'll see what happens when I come back. Probably chaos.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right. I'm gonna read back the chat. It's a game to them to like. Okay. The OC children and the yellow bastard. Kaoru giving Chair advice and wooing Amuro. I'm not sure what you're talking about. There is like an interesting. I think it's Shinji Ikari Raising Project, where, ooh, what's her name? Um, the doctor lady, Ritsuko, where Ritsuko is basically grooming Kaoru into seducing Shinji. And then, oopsie, Kaoru actually does fall for Shinji. So it starts off as him deliberately trying to like get close, and like you're not sure why, but there's this implication that like the whole Shinji getting betrayed is an important part of him becoming the thing that Nerve needs him to be. So in that, like, Ritsuko's like, are like, why? But Kaoru's a boy, like, and Shinji's a boy. How how is that gonna work? Like, is Shinji really like that? And like that means, attracted to men. And then it's like, yeah, he is kind of like that. Like, you'd be surprised he's so desperate for love that, like, yeah, he would absolutely fall for Kaoru's charms if he said the right thing, which is interesting to me. Anthony back in his where everything's on fire. Okay, we have to say something really out of pocket. Oh, Shinji.
Oh, cool.
Can I read it out? I was about to read it out when you sat down.
Go for it. Read it.
Shinji is one of those rare characters where I like pretty much every ship with him, honestly. Also, there's evidence to suggest Masato and Kaji are bi. Yeah.
I can see Kaji and Masato being a bi for bi couple.
Yeah, I mean, like, Kaji's little moment with Shinji where he's like, Tinder is not an issue at all, and like Shinji freaks out. What a moment. What a moment.
What a closeted bisexual moment from Shinji.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. And like Shinji, I think the only ship I don't like with Shinji,
I don't really like Rei and Shinji, to be honest.
I'll be honest with you. Rei's my least favorite character in Eva. Of the core characters.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is that she's the easiest to like. And when I have a friend that really, really likes Rei. So I'm sorry if you're listening, Rose, because I know she was here earlier, but like, I feel like I'm just so bored with people like, my favorite character is Rei. It's like, oh, you don't say. She's like the least confrontational. She like objectively doesn't really do anything kind of stinky and wrong. Like, she's so easy to like. So I find it kind of boring when somebody's like, yeah, she's my favorite character. I'm like, oh yeah,
You see, my problem is as I've gotten older, that's not even true. Even when I was in high school and like college, I really thought that Yuki Nagato from Haruhi Suzumiya was kind of what I was hoping Rei would be when I first watched Eva. Where it's like at first you see like them as like, because Rei's a very passive character in the original series. I thought she gets more active in End of Eva, but she's very passive and usually her actions are in response to the needs of someone else. Whereas someone like Yuki is the same kind of concept where they have the ability to rewrite reality, but to an extent. But they also take matters in their own hands, and their actions, even if like subconscious, have a distinct impact on the world. They're acting for their own interests as opposed to the interests of someone else. And with Rei, I feel like her arc culminates in her acting in favor of rejecting Gendo's desires to act on Shinji's desires.
So one of my favorite mecha series is a direct response to Evangelion, and it's called Eureka 7. and
That's a
Eureka
good
is
one.
basically just a fully realized Rei. Like she's everything Rei could have been.
Hmm.
And it's a lot more explicit in Eureka 7 that like these entities, they're not supernatural, they're just aliens.
Mm.
Um and she and Eureka is a human shaped alien. They're called Corallians. Um and I just think that I think Eureka is a much more interesting Rei than Rei is.
I
If
agree with
that
that.
makes
I haven't seen Eureka 7 in years. I watched it on, was it on Adult Swim or was it Funimation channel? I forget where
I
it
think it's fun.
aired.
I live in Canada, so I saw it on YTV.
Oh, there you
So
go. There you go. In America, it was either the Funimation channel or it was
I'm
Adult Swim. I forget which one. I think. Or did I
I'm pretty sure
borrow it?
it was the Funimation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Either it was on one of those two channels or I borrowed it. Now I'm drawing a blank. Now I'm doubting my own memories. That's how
My
you know.
my
But I
favorite
remember
my
digging
favorite
it.
set of characters in Eureka though are Dominic and Anemone. Oh my god, it's amazing. And their little fucking whatever that animal is.
Oh my god, yeah. Now I gotta revisit that one. I wonder if that holds up because I haven't seen it in
Oh,
years.
it does. It does. It's so good. And there's like a new series as well I have to watch.
Yeah,
It's so good.
I'm seeing chat say it was on Adult Swim, so I'll go with that.
Okay, well, I'm stinky and wrong. I am incorrect about everything.
Well, here's a question for you too. This might be a real deep cut.
Okay.
Did you ever watch Razafon?
I don't think so. Sorry.
Razafon is basically in its own sense. It's a good show on its own, but it's basically like the most transparent ripoff of Evangelion possible.
Oh, I remember seeing it around, and I was like, this is just Ava, and I didn't.
Like even like
It looks
episode to
it looks
episode beats.
it looks like um Code Geass and Ava had an ugly baby.
Yeah, with musical monsters. Yeah,
Yeah.
and what's
Mhm.
so funny is it was dubbed by
It's also
ADV.
Bones. It
What?
was also created by Bones,
Oh, was it
which is the
Bones?
same.
Oh my
It was,
god.
which is also the people who made
Eureka 7, right?
Eureka 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's funny is
I think
what? Sorry.
yeah. I was just gonna say I think Eureka 7 is like a deconstruction
Mm-hmm.
of Evangelion. So
The only
which
thing,
Evangelion in and of itself is a deconstruction of like all
mechas
of
and all that,
mechas in general. Yeah.
which is wild because the mecha genre was pretty deconstructed thoroughly by Gundam, the original Gundam, when that first came out. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny. Mecha keeps deconstructing itself, and then
Yeah, it
later
does.
entries reconstruct. Just you make that those become the new cliches or tropes that every mecha to follow takes, but doesn't do as well until they
Well, people don't even
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Until they deconstruct it again. Which is
Yeah.
but before I forget about Razafon, before I forget, I know you have a thought, but before I forget this, because I think it's interesting the discussion that we're having. Razafon does the same thing Ava does with one key difference. The main ship is between the Shinji equivalent and the Misato equivalent. Because there's like time gap shenanigans where like a character like ages at different rates, if I remember correctly. And it's
interesting.
so someone they know he knows as a kid, now as an adult, and it's like weird. Also half the cast was also in Ava for the ADV dub, and it's just weird. Anyway, as you were saying.
That is a good question. What was I saying? The train has left the station. Where was I?
Chat's asking, remember
Yeah.
when this was about Ava? Yeah, remember?
I remember what I was gonna say. People don't even realize like what the sort of original mecha animes were, and that was like Go Lion and stuff like that. That's
I'd say further than that.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I would say if you want to talk about the first mecha series, you gotta go back way further.
I mean, I think that was like the quintessential one that like Gundam and. Okay, well, yeah.
Going back to Gigantor here, going all the way back.
Going way back. But I think that like it was, if you look at like the designs and stuff, it was Go Lion that Gundam and Evangelion were trying to deconstruct, I think, where they're like, okay, but what would it actually be like if a teenager was in a death machine?
I think also Mazinger Z as well. That was another one that was like a big heavy influence on both Gundam and Eva separately. Giant Robo, Chad has mentioned, it's another one.
Yeah.
A lot of the 70s super robot, like again, Go Line is in that same conversation. The big super robot mechs where it was such a unrealistic situation because Gundam was the realistic alternative. That was like
Yep.
that was going okay. So we have a chat saying the OG mecha was Steamboat Willie and valid. That's a valid argument there. I won't say no to that. But no, like the idea was they'd say, okay, these are really silly monsters and silly robots. They're fun to watch, but they're ultimately very silly. And of course, Mazinger Z was again going to Guy, so Delphman connection there. What would we do if these were realistic war machines? How would a military function with these? And that then you have Mobile Suit Gundam.
And then like that, what would that look like if that sort of technology existed in the world? And like, I haven't revisited the older Gundam in a while. I remember watching the original Gundam and Gundam Wing, but Gundam Seed was like it was my shit as a teenager.
Gundam Seed. I have a Gundam Seed shirt I've worn to some of these streams.
Yeah,
Years ago.
and I know that they do this in other series where it's like the people that like were basically like bred and like genetically altered to pilot, to pilot the Gundams or the mechs, because it was so hard on the human body, like, and there was like they had to be specifically bred to be synced up with them, and that kind of like you see that a bit in Evangelion too, where like they kind of become one with the things that they're piloting,
through synchronization. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the difference there with Eva is that the circumstances of trauma kind of bonded the robots because their mothers are still there. Personally, with Gundam, my favorite was G Gundam. I loved how you had like every country's like worst stereotype as a mech. I thought that was really goofy. Like I love especially America. They had the Statue of Liberty cannon, like
Oh my God.
a big floating New York colony in space, and they had like a Statue of Liberty at the end of it, and they'd fire lasers from the little torch. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. I love it.
Thing I would love. I know that you're like, the lore isn't as important, but I would love to talk about some of the lore of Eva and how that like relates to Kaworu and specifically, but also kind of shapes how he might feel about Shinji.
100%. Let's dive into it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you're very familiar. I don't know.
Somewhat.
Okay. So do you know what the FAR are?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the first ancestral race. They were essentially like the prototypical humans.
The black and white moons that they have.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself now when I say that.
Yeah. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but they were dying off, and they were like, okay, we need to. So panspermia is a theory of how life is propagated to planets, and it's that like, well, it started off on one planet, and then was propagated out towards other planets in basically like some sort of event, like intentionally or accidentally, like maybe like a bacteria like was clinging to a rock that landed on planets, and like that's one version of it. But in this version of it, it was a dying alien race was like, we want our people to keep living, so we're going to send them out, but we don't want them to die like we did. We destroyed ourselves. So the ultimate power of knowledge, which is the seed of knowledge, went to the Lilith-like aliens. And the ultimate power the ultimate potential of power went to the Atom-like seeds. And And they were never supposed to end up on the same planet, because if they did, they would destroy themselves or destroy one another, because they can't exist at the same time. And there was like a fail safe, which was that Lance of Longinus that comes in towards the end of the series. But the Lance of Longinus was originally intended as a fail safe. Like, if you get to a planet and then another one of the seeds comes to that planet, kill it with this thing. And angels were actually the first beings on Earth, and then it was Lilith that crash landed on Earth by accident. And I think it was because of the crash landing that Adam's lance was basically buried underground. It had Lilith's lance against Adam, to basically destroy the angels. So like the angels were robbed of their home by the humans. And I will also say, because we're talking about it, there's like two different interpretations of angels versus humans. So Kaworu calls humankind Lilin. Of Lilith, they came from Lilith. We do not have an equivalent of Adam. So the fandom often calls everything that came from Adam angels. But how it's actually used in the series is everything that came from the first ancestral race are angels. Exactly. Which means Lilith is an angel, Adam is an angel. All of the angels that we see as enemies, all of those creatures are angels, but also humans are angels. And that's why it said that he was the 18th angel. But because we don't have a word for the progeny or the descendants of Adam, the fandom just calls those beings angels, even though that's not accurate to what how they're referred to in the series. So I think that we should do the same. I just want to acknowledge that, like, it's not really the same as how they're referred to in the series, but just for convenience sake, I think we should continue to like use angels to describe descendants of Adam, and human or Lilin to describe descendants of Lilith, just because otherwise it'll get really confusing. Exactly, but that's, yeah. If you agree with that, then I think it'll be easier to kind of talk about the lore and stuff. But if you have an alternative suggestion, it's just hard to talk about if we don't come up with a way to be consistent.
I agree. No, entirely. And again, what's so interesting about like yeah, agreed entirely. So, yeah, that works. Nothing to add right so far. So from that same metric, of course, Shinji and Kaworu's relationships as angels born from different progeny from different from Adam and Lilith, their relationship becomes more star-crossed in a way, because they are born to be oppositional to each other.
But that's by design of the first ancestral race, because they decided that these two ideas are incompatible. Exactly. And humans, like the whole thing of being anti-angel and like, oh, these things are like otherworldly aliens that are here to kill us, when it's like, actually, no, they're actually from the same thing. Like they're basically they're the same. They're just have the difference between angels and Lilin is that angels can change the shape of their body to fit. Because now we're getting into things like AT fields, and then wow,
the separation of selves from the other selves, the idea of boundaries. And it's interesting too how with Lilin, how humanity, the AT field manifests as the individual boundaries between people, whereas with the angels, because they're each separate entities, separate outcomes of humanity, of the human race potentially, their ET field manifests as raw power.
Yep. And they can shape it and they can change it however they want. And I think that's interesting, because at any point in the series, Kaworu could have killed Shinji, killed everyone at Nerve, and gotten exactly what he wanted at any time. He is extremely powerful, but he never uses that power except to get down to terminal dogma. Like, we only see like a small flash of his capabilities to just basically blow back past all of Nerve's defenses and get what he wants. But when he realizes that getting the thing that he came down there for would kill Shinji, he just basically keels over. And that's something I would like to get into too, but I think it's very interesting that Kaworu has all this raw power, but instead of using it, decides to take some time to get to know Shinji and get close to him. He didn't need to do that, which is another reason why I don't really like the interpretation that he was manipulating Shinji, because he could have gotten whatever he wanted at any time, and he chooses not to.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's the thing too that people I feel overlook when they try to go for this more predatory perspective of Kaoru.
Mhm.
There's no he doesn't gain anything from hurting Shinji. There's
Yeah,
no benefit to him whatsoever. Like, he has his mission he has to accomplish, and he chooses to give up his mission when he sees the reality of it. Anyone who says that he's predatory ignores that key component. That he's not gaining anything from this by dying. Like, yes, he regains life in a sense when Adam is united with Lilith in Third Impact. But that is not to say that he still exists in the same way that he did previously. It's like
right.
a transition, like a change of sorts.
Can I
And
just do a short 30-second pause?
go for it.
All right, 1 second.
No problem. We have lost Krim for a moment. Let us have a moment of in chat. Want everyone just to silently miss Krim's departure for the next 10 seconds. We're gonna have to.
Sorry about.
Oh, she's back. Oh, good. He's back. Good. Krim's back. Good. Krim, you've returned.
I think like, what were you saying before I was getting up? Sorry.
Oh no, Krim. I was saying we're gonna have a moment of we're gonna put a bunch of S's in chat. I was just gonna say F's in chat, but S's instead because of some reason.
Okay.
Before that, we're talking about choosing to
Choosing to spend time with Shinji. And
choosing that kind of sense of the idea that Shinji that Kaoru doesn't need to do anything for Shinji. He just chooses to
Mhm.
be kind to him. Because
And also like, oh, go ahead.
no, that was the gist of it. Like he doesn't get anything from hurting Shinji. There's no benefit to him. His mission is to reunite with Adam, not Lilith. And
Yep.
the implication there being, like we've discussed previously in this video, is that if they all believe Terminal Dogma is host to Adam, then why hurt anyone else? They just want to get to their reunite with their creator.
There's also the fact that like Kaoru chooses to take human form.
Mm.
As an angel, he can take whatever form he wants, but he chooses, and especially because he's Adam, he has so much power. Like, he's the most powerful angel there is. He doesn't use any of that power, and he decides and chooses to take on a human vessel, which is so much more weaker and vulnerable. Like, he can very easily be killed. He doesn't have a core or an S2 engine, as far as I understand. It's sometimes people theorize that his S2 engine is in his head, and that's why like he constantly gets decapitated, and why they were able to like salvage his thought patterns and turn him into a dummy plug. But
Yeah.
Which is dark as fuck. But
Yeah, very twisted.
But the fact that he chooses to take on a vulnerable human body to meet and interact with Shinji is very, very interesting to me. I think, and that supposedly he chooses not to exhibit any of his true powers when because they say they did not see this coming, right? They did not hate what he was going to end up doing. And again, there are a lot of uncomfortable implications if Kaoru is truly a mirror of Rei. You know, especially like with what we know of Sele, but like again, the implications and the things that you could suppose that he got up to with them or they got up to with him, like it's more chilling not knowing, I think. Like right? Like
Yeah,
who
because
knows
it's the implications. It's storytelling through suggestion in a lot of ways. And
I
like,
think it's better to wonder than to know for sure.
100%. And again, also keep in mind, he is the first the main angels to show up in the series, aside from, of course, Lilin. Um, like, yes, we have Adam and Lilith, but after them, he's born before all the other angels that we encounter in the rest of the series materialize.
I would also say there's a couple other things about Kaoru and lore that I do want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the things is that Kaoru Nagisa is a name that he chooses to go by. And speaking of trans interpretations, I think that that's like choosing to go by an identity. He never identifies in any of the series with the name Tabris. That's a name associated with him by humans, really.
Yeah.
He chooses to go by Kaoru, and he chooses to live as Kaoru. And like from what we see, being Kaoru is what makes him the happiest. Like his moments with Shinji as this entity that's existed, like it is so powerful that he was this god, essentially. Like if you kind of want to get cosmic about it, he was this god that was sent to Earth to create a whole race of beings, and then he was reborn as an angel, like to go on whatever mission to bring them back. But he says to Shinji, despite all of these great big cosmic implications of his existence, he says to Shinji, this 14-year-old boy that he met days ago, that I was born to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, knowing the intended purpose of the first ancestral race and Seele and all of the intentions people had for Kaoru's like, nope, I was born to meet you, Shinji. All of that doesn't matter. I was born to meet you. And I think that's fucking powerful. And that's why I think the lore of like Neon Genesis is so important. Because it really drives home that Kaoru is very it drives home Kaoru's feelings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Towards
and in that direction too, it also discusses the idea of predetermined destiny. You know, that someone is destined to do something specifically, but it feels like with this context, that Kaoru's self-actualized drive, like yes, he has a mission that is set out before him, but that changes the moment he meets Shinji. Like that idea that you do have this quote unquote predetermined path that you're traveling on. But then, through events, through encounters, through meaningful experiences, that changes and switches gears entirely into something beautiful and powerful. And there is something very... If you do want to read Evangelion through a Christian lens, which I don't recommend doing because I know the creators were always kind of like, well, we're putting crosses in because they look cool. And that was their intention. But the idea of someone who was born, who sacrificed themselves for the good of someone else to salvage them, to save them, that is very emblematic of themes in Christianity as well. I think it's very telling that he is this kind of Masonic figure, whereas he's deconstructing more anti-Masonic figures, like a Griffith, like a Rio. And in the lore, like you said itself, he is destined not for this. He's destined for something different, but chooses to go against his nature to take quote unquote nature, to be with someone who is his antithetical opposite, his counterpart across the seas. I'm sorry, now I'm might be babbling.
Two things about that. No, it's okay. Two things about that. The first thing is that, like, I think it's very telling, like, when people are like, oh, but, like, maybe he loves him as, like, a god loves a human. It's like, but well, then why does he choose to act as a human and to, like, like, it's more meaningful to me that Kaoru rejects his quote-unquote godhood. They're not actually gods, they're aliens, but they're so powerful they might as well be gods, right?
Exactly.
He that and chooses to be a human that dies for Shinji and dies a human death. And I think that, like, saying that, like, oh, but he loves Shinji like a god would love a human being. I think saying that flies in the face of Kaoru's sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm
Um,
not. Well, I think I should clarify one thing. I'm not saying it is like a god loving a person.
yeah,
I'm saying it's
but,
Masonic, which
yeah,
is different.
yeah. I would also say that, like, oh, I was going to go somewhere else. Ooh, where was I going to go? Was it something that somebody said in the chat?
There might be
Yeah,
a
I
chat.
can't remember. I can't
Supernatural
remember what I was going to say.
beings.
Um, oh goodness gracious.
Karu's
Cringe.
Tabras's for Sona.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. I like that. That's true.
Um,
This is what godlike creatures do when they want to be
oh,
furries. They
I
become
remember what
people.
I was going to say. So Tabris as a term, so all of the other angels are named after real angels in like Jewish tradition,
Yeah.
except for Tabris. But in Ava lore, Tabris is the angel of free will. You know
Mm-hmm.
who this goes a little bit in spite of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who the angel of free will is
Isn't
in
it
Western?
Lucifer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Kaoru is Lucifer / Satan, which is very interesting in the context of it being inspired by Devilman.
Exactly. Because again, the Rio connection. Because Rio is Satan.
Yeah, like, well, Reo and Kaoru are, they're the same thing, but Kaoru chooses love.
Let's just bring
Which I
up
think,
Rio just to have a visual comparison. Because I think if you have them side by side, you really see how physically similar they are. Let me get the manga version because I feel like getting
to
Crybaby on
clarify,
here.
I think Kaoru, Devilman Crybaby has the best visual. I'm sorry, but God,
I love
sorry.
that
Okay,
series.
I'm not gonna be horny. I'm not gonna be horny. I'm gonna be normal. Anyway,
Here,
I
this will
think
make you feel.
Kaoru loves Shinji like Zeus loves. There we go.
There we
No,
go.
don't do this to me. No, to clarify, I think Kaoru loves Shinji like Zeus love. No, I don't think. I think Kaoru is not as possessive and weird and jealous as Zeus. Sorry.
It's fair. It's valid. And again, like I'm just imagining a Christian fundamentalist coming into this stream right now to hear about a space alien Jesus Christ sacrifices himself for his same sex love interest.
Mm. Okay, so
That gives me life.
I want to talk about, okay. We're going to get a little spicy for a second here. We'll talk
Okay.
about Satan and Lucifer.
Satan.
Um so it's not so much that Lucifer rejects humanity, Lucifer rejects God.
Mm.
And Kaoru can be seen as rejecting the supposed gods that created him for himself and for love. Now, in Devilman, Ryo / Satan rejects God and is angry at him because I don't know how much people are kind of aware of this, but like um, in Devilman, devils were the kind of like the prototype to humans, but they were too violent. So God's like, I'm going to destroy all of them and use this planet to make humans. And Satan's like, dude, what the fuck? You can't just kill all these guys. Like, that's really messed up. And so God kills Satan along with all of the devils, and Satan chose to die with the devils instead of go back to God's side. And then when Ryo is born, because he doesn't remember being Satan, when Ryo is born, he meets Akira and they form this bond. But in the back of his mind, he has these things compelling him to basically seek out devils and reawaken them and destroy all humans, because that's what was his final wish as Satan before he died. Which is interesting. So it's really interesting how Kaoru is a direct opposition to that, but he's still rejecting that sort of godhood for, you know,
Exactly. No, I agree
for
entirely.
something he likes, you know.
It's interesting how that works, how that reoccurring trend, and again with fiction especially because the parallels between narratives, you see how these ideas that were prominent in one work are now reflected in a different work in that same way. With
And I'll also say that like these are just Buddhist ideas with a very thin veneer of Christian, basically Christian
iconography, really,
iconography
yeah,
and aesthetics. It's like it's kind of like Zelda in that way, where it's like if you take like a glance at Zelda, you're like, oh, that's inspired by European myth. But then you like look at the shape of the castles and how they're laid out, or the way the towns and homes are laid out, and it's like, wait a minute, these are Japanese villages. That's a Japanese castle with just like a European brick like texture slapped on top of it. So it's very much that's kind of the same thing with Ava and Devilman, is that they're actually Buddhist stories with a Christian veneer on top of it for so that it looks cooler.
I agree, and it's some incredible stuff right there. All right, we're starting to get a little late in the night, so I think we're gonna start wrapping things up for now.
Okay.
Just because I usually keep these under, I keep them under 3 hours, but because we were getting into such a good topic, I wanted to keep going as long as possible. So let's just wrap up with some final thoughts on. I'm now, Krim. I'm sure you want me to stay lingering on this page. I'm gonna click away from Satan here. Uh,
Oh yeah.
so
I'll be okay.
you'll be okay. You sure? Okay, good. Glad. I'm glad. I'm glad it's the case. So going back to Shinji and Kaworu one last time. I'll sum it up after you, but because it's my stream and I'll end it. Damn it. Um, but if you could sum up your feelings on this ship concisely and just a summation of it, how would you do that?
Concisely. How dare you?
Sorry.
I I would say that this pairing is, when it comes down to it, what it's about is like two people that have been through a lot of pain. And while we do see it through Shinji's eyes, Kaworu has clearly gone through a lot himself, choosing to find comfort in one another. And ultimately, I don't think it matters if Kaoru's love towards Shinji is romantic or like platonic or like as like a supernatural entity towards a human. What matters is how he affected Shinji. And I think the effect that he had on Shinji changed everything. I think Kaoru is the person that convinced Shinji that he's worthy of love. And I don't think Shinji would have made the choices that he ended up making in the end if Kaoru did not love him. Or at least if Shinji didn't feel like Kaoru loved him and Shinji didn't also love him in return. I think Evangelion would fall apart without that romantic and angle to Shinji's feelings.
Mm.
So I think incredibly important to Evangelion and honestly to the course of anime in general.
Yeah. I'm gonna second everything you just said and add a little bit of my own spin to it because you said you articulated it perfectly, and I really can't say it all that much better. But I will say this: I think also the idea that, at this point in the show when he's introduced, Shinji's at his lowest. It's truly, you are at the peaks of the depths of depression, really, the depths of misery and trauma and pain. And yet there is someone who deeply cares. And that one element of that very human story, that even if you're at the most depressing and lowest point in your life, there is still someone out there who feels like their life is made better by knowing you. Like, that is such an encouraging thought, and it's a beautiful thought. And even like, if I'm sorry, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say that, like, let's keep in mind that like Kaoru is the first person to ever say to Shinji, "I love you."
Exactly. And at no point has anyone else done that in this whole show, and it's really quite beautiful. And even though they are such opposites, they should be, by the nature of their birth, adversaries in some way, and yet neither sees the other as anything but something they value.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's very beautiful, I think, in that sense. And I think the tragedy of it, both the circumstances outside of their relationship and the circumstances within their relationship, really elevates this in a way that because there's many ships out there, relationships of where two guys are close to each other, where it's like You don't feel the same sense of need without anything erotic, without anything like of that nature. It's purely the emotional need for
Mhm.
acceptance and love, and I think that's just something beautiful that a lot of shows haven't done to this same extent. And I feel people who've copied it, they're missing the juice. That even when they're trying to copy the exact relationship, they're missing the juice, especially in the original incarnation. This is such a messy show, but that messiness is what makes it so good and so powerful. Like, so decades later, we're still talking about this, and I think there's a reason for that.
Because humans are messy. That like
100%.
Evangelion is so human despite its messiness, and maybe even because of its messiness.
I agree, and that's why so many attempts to make it more refined have always failed, because
Mhm.
by refining it, you remove that inherent chaotic element that's so human and so so easy to project yourself onto or find yourself slipping into. Yeah, it's a beautiful. This is a series I will come back to time and time again,
Mhm.
and I do not see this as the last time I'll talk about it. Not even close, because I love this series so much. Unless I die right now, which is not very likely. It'd be very bad, ill timing. I have a lot I want to get done, but not impossible, but not likely. Um, so I think we're gonna wrap up stream shortly now. Krim, where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Crimson Ender. That's probably the best way to find me. I'm just here on YouTube. And again, me and Anthony are doing another video on Friday. We're going to be covering, maybe we might cover something else, but we're covering Lily Orchard's video about wholesome versus dark media, or whatever she's called it right now.
Yeah,
She keeps changing titles and thumbnails, but we're going to take a look at that. And I think after that, we're really going to be discussing puritanical fandom. I think is probably gonna be what happens there. There's my channel. That's me.
there you go. And here's the thumbnail with his incredible art. You really draw me in a way that's quite flattering, I have to say.
Uh, well, I based it off of your avatar. I don't draw Lily flatteringly. Sorry, I was gonna redraw it, but I forgot my I travel for work and I forgot my tablet back at work, and I'm home right now because I
How
have a internet connection. So
how
at
dare
work.
you? If everyone in chat right now or watching subscribes to his channel, subscribes to Krim's channel, you will see this stream on Friday. And if you're already subscribed, uh, kidnap a friend, make them subscribe, and then they'll watch too. And it'll be great. It'll be good, wholesome family kidnapping. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
It's good
I will
times.
be. Will definitely will be a little spicy on that stream. I'm gonna admit that the gloves have been on with this person for a long time, and um, they've kind of come off for me. I'm kind of over it. So sorry, Anthony, if you get canceled, my fault.
Oh, don't worry. At this point, listen, Friday, I'm doomed anyway, because Friday is also when I release my newest video essay. This
Oh
time on
boy.
Star Wars The Acolyte.
Ugh,
And
why would
it's
you do that to yourself?
and it's over 80 minutes long.
Boy, we love a long form media king.
Oh, I'm so excited because the last time I covered media criticism, people took it so well.
Yeah, yeah.
It was so.
I definitely haven't heard on the grapevine that every right wing grifter wants head on a pike.
And look, some of the criticisms were fair, all right, like editing wise, that stuff, the camera quality, whatever. But like,
I mean, I also criticized you, but I think I was like more realistic and kinder than a lot of people were.
well, that's the thing too. I'm fine with criticism as long as it's good faith criticism, as long as it's constructive. You know, if someone's just being a jerk online, I don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
You would take seriously because you're actually coming from a place of sincerity. You'll call me out my bullshit, but you'll do it because you know there's a
Yeah.
benefit to it, which is good.
Yeah. No, I like your videos a lot. I haven't been watching them in the last 2 weeks because, like, again, poopy internet connection out at work, and I work 12 hours days, and I've just been going at it nonstop for 2 weeks. And I got back home, I did a stream, and I went back. So I haven't had a lot of time to, like, for myself to, like, watch things that I like.
That's
But
fair. And take time to rest. You know, you don't have to feel obligated to watch anything I put out. You just have to give
I mean,
yourself.
I like your videos, so
Oh,
I
thank
like
you.
watching them. But I'll go through the backlog when I get back home, and I have that week and a half of crashing after working at a summer camp. So
Understandable. Well, if you want to see me lay on top of a Snorlax reading,
I mean that, you know,
you got that. You got that looking. You got that ahead of
I
you.
got
So it
that
works
one.
out.
That one's I put that one in my wallet.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Actually, I had people send me that picture. Oh my god, it's so fun. Anyway, so we'll wrap things up right now. Everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to watch us discuss this incredible series and these characters who we clearly cared a lot about. And Crimson, even regardless of After Friday, if you ever want to jump on stream, you're more than welcome to.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'll keep that in mind for when I'm been freed from my summer camp bonds.
From your in the well, if Jason doesn't get you, that's what matters. You will be able to do that then if Jason doesn't like attack you first. Actually,
I just
Jason's
have to use my strong and kind words when sorry, I've been in training for 2 weeks. It's really insane this year. The kids have not recovered from the pandemic, so we had 2 weeks of training this year, and lots of little idioms. And I'm just if I encounter Jason, I'll just use my strong and kind voice. You know.
that'll work. It's funny too because Jason's actually a New Jersey creation, so we got him here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We also got
You know,
Michael
I've been.
Myers, strangely enough, too, because
Oh,
Haddonfield. Well, because the story, because Haddonfield is in like Michigan or whatever in the movies, but it's based on Haddonfield, New Jersey, where one Deborah Hill was born and raised, which is much
interesting.
a distance away from me. It's not close to where I am. It's more South Jersey. It's more like the
Mhm.
Tuckerton area, but beautiful. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion for the day. We have a lot of horror
Yeah.
here. And we got Chucky
Yeah.
too, so we got 3 of them. It works out. We have Hackensack. That's anyway. I'm babbling. So, thank you everyone so much for watching. Have a great rest of the night. Take care.